Hi there, friends. Thanks for tuning in to Dark Harry. Get ready for an incredible journey as we present what if Dobby bonded with Harry in second year and became the most powerful elf in history. If you find our stories entertaining, a simple like and subscribe would mean everything to us. Your support motivates us to create more. Here we go. Chapter 1, The Unusual Bond. Harry Potter stared at the ceiling of his bedroom at number 4, Privet Drive, counting the cracks for probably the 100th time that week. 3 locks on his door, bars on his window, and a cat flap for meals, if you could call them that. All because some house elf named Dobby had crashed his uncle's business dinner and gotten him in the worst trouble of his life. Boy! Uncle Vernon's voice thundered up the stairs. Get down here. Harry sighed, rolling off his bed. The locks clicked open one by one from the outside. At least they were letting him out. Progress, he supposed. He trudged down the stairs, finding Vernon's massive form blocking the hallway, his mustache twitching with barely contained rage. Yes, Uncle Vernon. Your aunt and I are taking Dudley shopping for his school things. He jabbed a sausage-like finger into Harry's chest, will clean the gutters. All of them. If they're not spotless when we return, you won't eat for a week. Understood? Harry nodded, knowing arguing was pointless. At least he'd be outside. 30 minutes later, perched precariously on a rickety ladder that Vernon had purposely picked, the broken one from the shed, Harry scraped gunk from the gutters. The August heat beat down mercilessly, sweat dripping into his eyes. Harry Potter should be careful. The voice startled Harry so badly he nearly fell. Clutching the ladder, he looked down to see those enormous green eyes and bat-like ears. Dobby? What are you doing here? Harry whispered frantically. You've got to leave. If my uncle sees you, Dobby had to come back, sir. Dobby feels terrible about Harry Potter's punishment. But Harry Potter still must not go back to Hogwarts. Harry glared down at the house elf. Thanks to you, I'm basically a prisoner here. And you want me to stay? No way. But the danger, the roar of an engine cut Dobby off. The Dursleys' car pulled into the driveway, hours earlier than expected. Hide! Harry hissed. But it was too late. Vernon stepped out, his piggy eyes instantly landing on Dobby. What is that thing? He bellowed, face turning an alarming shade of purple. Another freakish friend of yours? Petunia screamed from the passenger seat. Dudley just stared, mouth hanging open like a beached fish. He's just, Harry stammered, descending the ladder as quickly as possible. Vernon charged forward with surprising speed for a man his size, grabbing Harry by the collar before he could reach the bottom rung. The ladder teetered dangerously. I told you. No freakishness. Spittle flew from Vernon's mouth as he shook Harry violently. Harry felt the ladder give way beneath him. He fell awkwardly, his ankle twisting with a sickening pop as he hit the ground. Vernon, still gripping his collar, hauled him up. You've done it now, boy, Vernon hissed, his voice suddenly deadly quiet. I've had enough. We never wanted you. Never. And now, his free hand closed around Harry's throat. Uncle Vernon, can't breathe, Harry gasped, clawing at the meaty fingers. Stop. You must stop hurting Harry Potter. Dobby squeaked, pulling at Vernon's pant leg. Vernon kicked out, sending Dobby tumbling across the lawn. Stay out of this, you little monster. Black spots danced in Harry's vision as his uncle's grip tightened. You is a bad muggle. Dobby's voice rose, suddenly stronger. Dobby cannot allow this. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Dobby raised his hand, not the normal snap of house elf magic, but a deliberate, forceful gesture. A blast of energy shot toward them, but instead of hitting Vernon, it enveloped Harry like golden light. Vernon's eyes widened in shock as the magic rippled through his nephew. He released Harry with a howl, clutching his burned hand. But Harry didn't fall. He hung suspended in air, the golden light pulsing around him. Across the lawn, Dobby was similarly enveloped, his small body levitating a foot off the ground. "What's happening?" Harry gasped, feeling something strange unfurling inside him, like a door opening to a room he never knew existed. "Dobby doesn't know," the elf cried, his voice layered with wonder and fear. Dobby only wanted to save Harry Potter. Their eyes met across the lawn, green to green, and Harry felt it, a click, like the final piece of a puzzle sliding into place. Magic surged between them, visible as a golden thread connecting their chests. Vernon, momentarily frozen in shock, snapped out of it. "I'll kill you both," he roared, charging at Harry again. Harry didn't think, he just reacted. He thrust out his hand instinctively, and Vernon stopped mid-stride, frozen in place. Not petrified, just held. "Whoa," Harry breathed, staring at his own hand in disbelief. "Harry Potter did wandless magic!" Dobby exclaimed, his eyes even wider than usual. I think we both did," Harry replied, looking at the golden thread still connecting them. "Dobby, what's happening to us?" Before the elf could answer, Vernon broke free of the magical hold with a bellow of rage and lunged for the garden rake leaning against the house. "We have to go," Harry said urgently. "Now. Dobby can take Harry Potter away." The house elf extended his hand. The moment their fingers touched, the golden thread between them flared blindingly bright. The last thing Harry saw was Vernon's face contorted with hatred as he swung the rake. Then the world compressed around them, and Privet Drive vanished. They crashed onto damp grass, the golden light still swirling around them before slowly fading into their skin. Harry lay flat on his back, gasping for breath, his ankle throbbing. Beside him, Dobby wobbled to his feet. "Is Harry Potter hurt?" "Just my ankle," Harry winced, sitting up to look around. "Dobby, where are we?" They were in a field on the outskirts of a ramshackle building that seemed to defy the laws of physics, a house with multiple floors stacked haphazardly, looking like it might collapse any second. The Weasleys. Harry recognized the Burrow from Ron's description. "Dobby brought us to Harry Potter's wheezy." "Dobby thought it would be safe," the elf said, looking uncertain. "But Dobby feels different." Now that Harry looked properly, he could see changes in the house elf. Dobby stood straighter, his usually hunched posture more aligned. The constant nervous trembling had ceased, and there was a subtle glow to his skin. "You look different," Harry confirmed. "And I feel different too. Like my magic was buried under concrete and someone just jackhammered it loose." Dobby nodded vigorously. "Yes. Dobby feels his magic growing, changing. And Dobby can feel Harry Potter's magic too, like it's connected to Dobby's own." Harry closed his eyes, concentrating. Sure enough, he could sense Dobby's presence, not just physically, but magically. A warm awareness in the back of his mind. "I think," Harry said slowly, "we somehow formed a bond." "A magical bond? Between wizard and house elf?" Dobby's eyes widened even further, which Harry wouldn't have thought possible. Such a thing has never happened in all of house elf history. "First time for everything," Harry muttered, attempting to stand. His ankle buckled under him. "Ouch! Harry Potter is injured. Dobby will help." Before Harry could protest, Dobby placed his hand on Harry's ankle. The sensation was bizarre, warm and cool simultaneously, like menthol and sunshine. The pain vanished instantly, and when Harry tested his weight, his ankle held perfectly. "You just healed me. Without a wand or anything?" "Dobby has always had healing magic," the elf said, looking just as surprised as Harry. "But never this strong or easy. It's the bond, Harry Potter. The bond is making Dobby stronger." A shout from the direction of the Burrow interrupted them. Ron Weasley was sprinting across the field, followed by the twins, Fred and George. "Harry?" Ron skidded to a halt, gaping at them. "Blimey, what are you doing here? And who's that? Is that a house elf? George asked, catching up. What happened to you, mate? You look like you've been in a fight, Fred added, eyeing Harry's torn clothes and the bruises forming on his neck. Harry opened his mouth to explain, but where to even start? My uncle tried to kill me and somehow I magically bonded with a house elf didn't seem like a simple opener. It's a long story, he settled on. This is Dobby. He saved my life. A house elf saved your life. Ron looked skeptical. And now we're connected somehow, Harry continued. Magically, I mean. Connected, the twins echoed in unison. As if on cue, the golden thread flickered into visibility between Harry and Dobby before fading again. Bloody hell, Ron whispered. Fred and George exchanged identical looks of fascination. Mum needs to see this, Fred said decisively. Come on. As they walked toward the burrow, Harry noticed he could sense where Dobby was without looking, like a compass needle always oriented toward the elf. From Dobby's frequent glances in his direction, Harry guessed he felt the same. Mrs. Weasley's reaction to their arrival was predictably chaotic. First came the shock of finding Harry on her doorstep, then horror at his bruised appearance, followed by bewilderment at Dobby's presence, and finally stunned silence when they demonstrated their strange new connection. In all my years, she kept saying, bustling around the kitchen preparing tea and sandwiches. A wizard-elf bond. Arthur will be fascinated. Is it dangerous? Harry asked, voicing the worry that had been growing since they arrived. I mean, it happened so suddenly, and neither of us knows what it means. I honestly don't know, dear, Mrs. Weasley admitted, setting a steaming mug in front of him. Magic, especially spontaneous magic, works in mysterious ways. But we'll figure it out. Mrs. Weasley is kind, Dobby said, accepting his own mug with reverence. Most wizards would be horrified at a house elf bonding with a wizard as equals. Equals? Ron frowned. Is that what this is? It feels that way, Harry said, realizing it was true. Not like master and servant. More like partners. Fascinating, said a new voice. Mr. Weasley had arrived home, and was surveying the scene with keen interest. May I? He gestured toward the space between Harry and Dobby. At their nods, he pulled out his wand and murmured an incantation. The golden thread reappeared, stronger than before, pulsing with energy. Extraordinary, Mr. Weasley breathed. This is old magic. Very old. What does it mean for them, Dad? Ron asked. I'm not entirely sure, Mr. Weasley admitted, lowering his wand. The thread faded but didn't disappear completely this time. But I suspect we're witnessing something unprecedented. A symbiotic magical bond, by the looks of it. Symbiotic? Hermione would be proud of Harry for knowing that word. You mean we're sharing magic? More than that, I think, Mr. Weasley said thoughtfully. From what you've described, you're enhancing each other's abilities. Dobby's healing is stronger, and you performed wandless magic, something most adult wizards struggle with. But why did it happen? Harry pressed. Magic often responds to desperate need, Mrs. Weasley said gently. You were in mortal danger. Dobby wanted desperately to save you. The conditions were right for something extraordinary to occur. Harry looked at Dobby, who was uncharacteristically quiet, absorbing everything. Are you okay with this? He asked the elf. Being bonded to me? Dobby's ears perked up. Dobby is honored. Harry Potter asks if Dobby is okay, as if Dobby has a choice. That is why Dobby admires Harry Potter so much. Harry Potter treats Dobby as an equal. You do have a choice, Harry insisted. I don't know if we can break this bond, but if you want to, we'll figure out how. Dobby's eyes filled with tears. Harry Potter is the greatest wizard ever. But Dobby does not want to break the bond. Dobby has never felt so free. Harry suggested. Dobby considered this, tilting his head. Not free exactly. Connected. Powerful. Like Dobby is finally becoming who Dobby was meant to be. The Weasleys watched this exchange with varying expressions, Mr. Weasley fascinated, Mrs. Weasley touched, Ron confused, and the twins thoroughly entertained. Well, Mrs. Weasley said briskly, wiping her hands on her apron. Bond or no bond, you both need rest. Harry, you'll stay in Ron's room. Dobby, would you prefer a bed of your own, or? Dobby finds he needs to stay near Harry Potter, the elf said. The bond is new. Distance might strain it. Makes sense, Mr. Weasley nodded. We'll set up a comfortable spot in Ron's room for you two, then. That night, lying in the camp bed in Ron's violently orange bedroom, Harry stared at the ceiling, processing everything. Dobby was curled up in a nest of blankets nearby, not asleep either. Dobby? Yes, Harry Potter. Do you think this bond will affect you going back to the Malfoys? A long silence followed. Finally, Dobby said, Dobby thinks. Dobby is not sure he belongs to the Malfoys anymore. Harry turned to look at the elf, surprised. What do you mean? Dobby feels different. The bond with Harry Potter has changed something fundamental in Dobby's magic. Dobby doesn't think he can be bound to the Malfoy family the same way anymore. Are you free, then? Dobby sat up, his silhouette visible in the moonlight streaming through the window. Not free like a free elf with clothes. Different. Dobby is bound to Harry Potter now, but not as a house elf to a master. As. He struggled for the word. As a magical equal. Dobby has never heard of such a thing. Me neither, Harry admitted. But I'm glad it's you, Dobby. If I had to be magically bonded to someone, I'm glad it's you. Even in the dim light, Harry could see Dobby's smile. Dobby is glad too, Harry Potter. Very glad indeed. The following days at the Burrow were a crash course in understanding their new bond. Each morning brought new discoveries. On day one, they realized they could sense each other's emotions. Harry knew when Dobby felt anxious about using the Weasleys' kitchen implements. Dobby knew when Harry felt embarrassed by Mrs. Weasley's fussing. It's like having a mood ring that actually works, Harry tried to explain to Ron, who just shook his head in bewilderment. On day two, they discovered distance limitations. When Harry went flying with Ron and the twins, he felt the bond stretch uncomfortably once he passed the orchard boundary. Not painful, but unsettling, like an elastic band pulled too tight. On day three came the biggest surprise. Harry was helping Diagon the garden when a particularly vicious gnome sank its teeth into his hand. Ouch! Harry yelped, shaking his hand. Before Mrs. Weasley could even reach for her wand, Dobby appeared with a crack beside him. Harry Potter is hurt. It's just a gnome bite, Dobby. Nothing serious, but Dobby was already holding Harry's injured hand. The healing magic flowed as before, warm and soothing. What neither expected was for Harry's free hand to suddenly glow with the same energy. Acting on pure instinct, Harry touched his glowing hand to Dobby's forehead. The elf gasped, his eyes widening. What's happening? Mrs. Weasley asked, watching in fascination. Dobby sees. The elf whispered. Dobby sees the flow of magic in the garden. The wards around the Burrow. Dobby can see magic. Harry, meanwhile, found he could suddenly sense the gnomes hiding in the bushes, not see them, exactly, but feel their presence like little sparks of chaotic energy. I think, Harry said slowly, we just shared abilities. Mr. Weasley, who had taken to studying them with scholarly enthusiasm, theorized that their bond allowed for a transfer of inherent magical gifts. House elves naturally sensed magic differently than wizards, now Dobby was developing a more refined version of that sense, while sharing it with Harry. Extraordinary became Mr. Weasley's favorite word that summer. The Weasleys adapted to the Harry-Dobby situation with typical Weasley flexibility. Ron got over his initial awkwardness and taught Dobby wizard chess. The twins tried, unsuccessfully, to recruit Dobby for pranks. Ginny remained too shy to speak much to Harry, but she snuck Dobby extra helpings at dinner. Percy alone maintained a disapproving distance, muttering about unprecedented magical contracts and regulatory concerns. "Don't mind him," Fred told Harry. "He's just jealous he doesn't have his own magical elf buddy." The most remarkable change was in Dobby himself. Day by day, his speech became more fluid, less prone to third-person references. His posture continued to improve. Even his appearance subtly altered, his skin took on a healthier glow, his eyes grew somehow more expressive. "I feel like I'm growing into something," Dobby confided to Harry one evening. "Like I was a seed, and now I'm finally getting water and sunlight." "You mean our bond is helping you change?" "I think it's allowing me to become what house elves could be, without centuries of servitude shaping us," Dobby said thoughtfully. "The magic feels older. More natural." Harry nodded. He'd been experiencing changes too, heightened senses, occasional flashes of wandless magic, and a deeper connection to his own magical core. It was like he'd been using only a fraction of his potential before. "We'll figure it out together," Harry promised. The thought of returning to Hogwarts with Dobby was both exciting and nerve-wracking. How would everyone react? What would Dumbledore say? The answer to the latter question arrived sooner than expected. 3 days before their planned trip to Diagon Alley, Dumbledore himself appeared at the Burrow's kitchen door. "Headmaster!" Mrs. Weasley exclaimed, nearly dropping a pot. "We weren't expecting. I'll put on some tea, thank you, Molly, but this isn't merely a social call," Dumbledore said, his eyes finding Harry and Dobby immediately. "I've come about our unusual pair here." Harry felt a flutter of anxiety. Would Dumbledore try to separate them? Break their bond? Dobby must have sensed his worry, because he moved closer to Harry's side, the golden thread briefly visible between them. "Remarkable," Dumbledore murmured, observing them over his half-moon spectacles. "Truly remarkable." After everyone settled around the kitchen table, Dobby included, at Mrs. Weasley's insistence, Dumbledore explained his visit. "News of your unique bond has reached me through various channels," he began. "Some more concerned than others, I might add." "Who's concerned?" Harry asked, immediately defensive. "The Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, for one," Dumbledore said mildly. "The impromptu severing of Dobby's connection to the Malfoy family has raised quite a few regulatory eyebrows. They're worried about paperwork while Harry nearly died." Ron blurted indignantly. Dumbledore's expression darkened momentarily. "Yes, about that. Rest assured, Harry, the situation with your relatives is being addressed. They will never again be in a position to harm you." The cold certainty in his voice made Harry believe him. "As for your bond," Dumbledore continued, turning to study both Harry and Dobby, "I've consulted some rather obscure magical texts. What you've experienced appears to be a variation of what was once called the Covenant of Mutual Aid, an ancient form of magical partnership that predates modern wizard-elf relations." "So this has happened before?" Harry asked eagerly. "Not for many centuries," Dumbledore replied. "And never quite in this form, from what I can gather. The Old Covenant was typically formed between wizards and various magical beings as equals. It fell out of practice as wizard dominance was established." "You mean when wizards started enslaving other magical beings," Dobby said with unexpected boldness. Dumbledore inclined his head. "History is rarely kind in its truths." "Yes, Dobby, many magical partnerships that once existed as balanced relationships became corrupted over time. The house-elf bond is perhaps the most dramatic example." "So what happens now?" Harry asked. "Can I bring Dobby to Hogwarts? Will he still be himself?" "Dobby will always be Dobby," Dumbledore said, his eyes twinkling. "Just perhaps more so than before. As for Hogwarts, I see no reason why he cannot accompany you." We may need to make some special arrangements, but that is easily managed. Harry exhaled in relief. However, Dumbledore continued more seriously, I must caution you both. This bond will make you targets of curiosity at best, and fear at worst. There are those who will view your partnership as a threat to the established order. Like the Malfoys, Harry guessed. Among others, Dumbledore agreed. Which brings me to your upcoming visit to Diagon Alley. I strongly suggest caution. The magical community is not yet aware of your bond, and such a public venue would be an unfortunate place for a confrontation. We need to get my school supplies, Harry pointed out. Indeed you do. I merely advise vigilance, and perhaps staying close to the Weasleys at all times. After extracting promises of caution from everyone, Dumbledore departed, leaving Harry and Dobby with more questions than answers, but at least with the reassurance that they wouldn't be forcibly separated. Well, said Fred, breaking the thoughtful silence that followed Dumbledore's exit. If anyone gives you trouble in Diagon Alley, we've got a few experimental products that need testing, George finished with a mischievous grin. Nobody's testing anything, Mrs. Weasley said firmly. But we will stay together. Safety in numbers. Despite their precautions, the trip to Diagon Alley went sideways almost immediately. Their first stop was Gringotts, where the goblins took one look at Harry and Dobby's bond and caused a minor sensation. Fascinating, a senior goblin named Gornik muttered, circling them. We haven't seen a covenant bond in 4 centuries. The last was between a wizard and a goblin metalsmith in 1612. What happened to them? Harry couldn't help asking. Gornik's face darkened. The Wisengamot of the time declared it unnatural and had them both executed. Oh, Harry said faintly. Different times, Gornik hastened to add. But be careful, young wizard. Old prejudices die hard. That sobering warning followed them as they collected Harry's money and headed to Flourish and Blots for school books. The shop was unusually crowded due to a book signing by some wizard named Gilderoy Lockhart. Oh no, Harry groaned, spotting the flamboyantly dressed wizard at the back of the shop. Let's get our books quickly and get out. Too late. A photographer spotted Harry and elbowed his way over. It can't be Harry Potter. Lockhart boomed, flashing a blindingly white smile. Before Harry could escape, Lockhart grabbed him and pulled him to the front for a photo op. In the commotion, Harry lost sight of Dobby, and immediately felt a surge of panic through their bond. Sorry, Harry said firmly, pulling away from Lockhart. I need to find my friend. Friend? But we've only just met. Lockhart laughed, not releasing Harry's shoulder. Harry closed his eyes briefly, focusing on the bond. Dobby was nearby, anxious but unharmed. Following the sensation like a compass, Harry broke free of Lockhart's grip and pushed through the crowd to find Dobby cornered by none other than Draco and Lucius Malfoy. Disgraceful, Lucius was saying coldly. A house elf, pretending to be independent. I don't know what game you're playing, elf, but you belong to the Malfoy family. I am not your elf anymore, Dobby said, standing his ground with newfound confidence. The bond has changed. I serve no master now. Impossible, Lucius hissed. No house elf can break the family bond without clothes. And I certainly never gave you any. He's with me, Harry said, stepping between them. Lucius's cold grey eyes flicked to Harry, then narrowed as he noticed the faint golden thread connecting him to Dobby. Potter, he said softly. I might have known you'd be involved in this aberration. It's not an aberration, Harry said, feeling Dobby's indignation fueling his own courage. It's a covenant of mutual aid. Ancient magic. Older than your family's claim on Dobby. Lucius went very still. You have no idea what you're meddling with, boy. That elf is Malfoy property, and I demand its return. I'm not a thing to be returned, Dobby said, his voice stronger than Harry had ever heard it. And I stand with Harry Potter. A crowd had gathered now, including the Weasleys, who moved protectively closer to Harry and Dobby. Lucius noted this with a curl of his lip. "This isn't over, Potter," he said softly. "Not by any means. You've stolen from the house of Malfoy, and there will be consequences." He turned to leave, deliberately bumping into Ginny and causing her to drop her cauldron of books. While everyone was distracted helping her gather her things, Lucius bent close to Harry. "Enjoy your pet elf while you can. Some bonds can be broken, painfully." Before Harry could respond, Lucius strode away, calling sharply for Draco to follow. "What a horrid man," Mrs. Weasley said, helping Ginny collect the last of her books. "Are you all right, Harry? Dobby?" "We're fine," Harry assured her, though the encounter had left him shaken. "Just ready to finish shopping and get out of here." The rest of their Diagon Alley trip passed without further incident, though Harry noticed people staring at Dobby with confusion or disapproval. The wizarding world clearly wasn't used to seeing a house elf walking freely alongside a wizard, much less one exhibiting the confidence Dobby now showed. September 1st arrived with the usual Weasley chaos of last-minute packing and forgotten items. The journey to King's Cross was tight with 9 people plus Dobby squeezed into Mr. Weasley's magically expanded Ford Anglia. "So how's this going to work at Hogwarts?" Ron asked as they loaded their trunks onto trolleys at the station. "Will Dobby stay in our dorm?" "Dumbledore sent an owl yesterday," Harry explained. "Dobby's officially being classified as my magical familiar for administrative purposes, which means he can stay with me. Though he's free to spend time with the Hogwarts elves too, if he wants." "I am curious to meet them," Dobby admitted. "But I worry they might not understand." They passed through the barrier to platform 9 3/4 without incident, the Scarlet Hogwarts Express waiting in a cloud of steam. As they boarded, Harry felt the familiar excitement of returning to school, tempered with anxiety about how everyone would react to Dobby. They found a compartment with Hermione, who'd been saving seats for them. Her reaction to Dobby and the bond was predictably Hermione-ish, initial shock, followed by rapid-fire questions, ending with a declaration that she needed to research magical bonds immediately. "This could revolutionize our understanding of house elf magic," she exclaimed. "Dobby, have you experienced increased magical abilities? Changes in how you perceive magic?" "Oh, there must be dozens of books in the library about magical covenants." "Breathe, Hermione," Ron advised, grinning. The train ride passed pleasantly enough, despite curious stares from students passing their compartment. Word of Harry's unusual companion spread quickly through the train. By mid-journey, their door had slid open a dozen times as people happened to walk by. "You'd think they'd never seen a house elf before," Harry grumbled after a group of Ravenclaw third-years peered in. "They haven't, not like this," Hermione pointed out. "House elves at Hogwarts stay hidden. Most students never interact with them directly." Halfway through the journey, their compartment door opened again, revealing Draco Malfoy flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. "Well, if it isn't Potter and his stolen elf," Draco sneered. "Father says it won't last, you know. House elves can't survive long without a proper wizard family to serve." Dobby stood up, facing his former owner's son without a trace of his old cowering demeanor. "Your father is wrong, Draco Malfoy. I am stronger now than I ever was in your family's service." To demonstrate, Dobby snapped his fingers. The compartment door slid shut so fast it nearly caught Draco's nose. "He can't do that," they heard Draco complain from the corridor. "Father will hear about this." "I've been meaning to ask," Hermione said after they stopped laughing. "What exactly can you do now, Dobby? Magically, I mean." Dobby looked thoughtful. "Dobby, I can do what house elves have always done, apparate where wizards cannot, perform magic without wands, sense magical energies. But now everything is stronger, clearer. And I can share some abilities with Harry Potter through our bond. Like healing," Harry added. "And we can sense each other's emotions and location." "Fascinating," Hermione breathed. "I wonder if," a sudden lurch cut her off as the train ground unexpectedly to a halt. The lights flickered, then went out completely. "What's happening?" Ron's voice came from the darkness. "Something's wrong," Dobby said, his voice tight. "I can feel darkness outside the train." Harry felt it too through their bond, a cold, creeping sensation of dread. "Everyone stay calm," he said, fumbling for his wand. "Lumos." The tip of his wand illuminated the compartment, showing his friends' worried faces. Frost was spreading across the window, despite the summer heat outside. "This isn't normal," Hermione whispered. The compartment door slid open again. Harry raised his wand, half expecting Malfoy, but instead found a tall, hooded figure looming in the doorway. Its face was hidden in shadow, but Harry could see a glistening, scabbed hand protruding from the cloak. Cold terror washed over him. The creature drew a long, rattling breath, and Harry felt his happiness draining away. Distant screaming filled his ears, a woman's voice, pleading. "Harry Potter must not fall." Dobby's voice cut through the fog. The elf leapt between Harry and the creature, his hands raised. "You will not harm him." A burst of golden light erupted from Dobby's palms. The hooded figure recoiled with a horrible shriek, gliding rapidly away down the corridor. "What was that thing?" Ron gasped as the lights flickered back on and the train slowly began moving again. "A Dementor," Hermione said, her voice shaking. "They guard Azkaban prison." "Why would it be on the train?" Harry asked, accepting a chocolate frog Ron offered him with trembling hands. "No idea," Ron said. "But did you see what Dobby did? He drove it off. Even the prefects couldn't do that." Harry turned to Dobby, who looked as surprised as anyone by what had happened. "How did you do that?" "I don't know," Dobby admitted. "I felt your distress through our bond, and I just reacted. The magic came naturally." "It looked like a Patronus," Hermione said thoughtfully. "Or something similar." "That's advanced magic, Dobby." The elf looked down at his hands in wonder. "The bond is changing what I can do. What we both can do." A prefect stopped by to check on them, explaining that the Dementor had been searching the train for an escaped prisoner named Sirius Black. The rest of the journey passed uneventfully, but word of Dobby's feat spread quickly. By the time they reached Hogsmeade Station, everyone was talking about the house elf who had driven off a Dementor to protect Harry Potter. The Great Hall buzzed with the usual start-of-term excitement, but with an added undercurrent of whispers as Harry entered with Dobby at his side. The golden thread connecting them was visible now without any special effort, pulsing gently with shared magic. "Is that a house elf? Why is Potter bringing a servant to the feast? Did you hear what happened on the train?" The murmurs followed them to the Gryffindor table. Harry sat down, and Dobby hesitated, clearly unsure where he should be. "Sit with us," Harry said firmly, making space on the bench. "You're not a servant here." The gesture caused another ripple of whispers. House elves simply didn't sit at tables with wizards, it wasn't done. But Harry was determined to establish from day one that his relationship with Dobby was different. At the staff table, Dumbledore watched with twinkling eyes. Professor McGonagall looked surprised but not disapproving. Only Snape's face showed open disdain, his lip curled as he observed the unusual pair. After the sorting and Dumbledore's usual announcements, including warnings about Dementors stationed around the school perimeter, the headmaster addressed the elephant, or rather, the elf, in the room. "Some of you may have noticed we have an unusual addition to our Gryffindor table this year," Dumbledore said, gesturing toward Harry and Dobby. "Mr. Potter and his companion Dobby have formed a rare magical covenant that requires them to remain together. I expect all of you to treat Dobby with the same respect you would show any student or staff member." This official acknowledgement seemed to satisfy most people's curiosity, at least temporarily. As the feast appeared, conversation turned to more typical first-day topics, summer adventures, new professors, including Hagrid for care of magical creatures, and speculation about the year ahead. "This isn't so bad," Harry said quietly to Dobby as they ate. I thought there'd be more of a fuss. The night is young, Harry Potter, Dobby replied with unexpected wisdom. We have challenged assumptions merely by sitting together. Change never comes without resistance. Harry was struck by the profound shift in Dobby's speech and thinking. The house elf was evolving before his eyes, gaining confidence and eloquence daily. Their bond wasn't just enhancing Dobby's magic, it was freeing his mind from centuries of conditioned subservience. As the feast concluded and students began heading to their dormitories, Professor McGonagall approached them. Potter, a word, if you please. You too, Dobby. She led them to a small antechamber off the great hall where, to Harry's surprise, Dumbledore was waiting along with a tiny wizard Harry recognized as Professor Flitwick. No need to look so worried, Harry, Dumbledore said kindly. We merely want to discuss some practical matters regarding your unique situation. Indeed, McGonagall agreed. While the headmaster has made arrangements for Dobby to stay in Gryffindor Tower, there are certain considerations we must address. Such as the fact that your bond appears to be growing stronger, Flitwick piped up excitedly. Most fascinating. The magical resonance between you is already visible to the naked eye, quite unusual for covenant bonds, according to my research. Harry looked down at the golden thread connecting him to Dobby, which seemed to be pulsing more vibrantly than ever. Is that bad? He asked uncertainly. Not bad, Dumbledore assured him. Simply unprecedented in recent times. Professor Flitwick has kindly agreed to help monitor your bond's development and assist you both in managing any new abilities that may emerge. New abilities? Harry echoed. We've already seen evidence of extraordinary magic, McGonagall said. That incident with the Dementor on the train, for instance. Word travels fast, Harry muttered. In a school full of teenagers. With the speed of light, Flitwick chuckled. The point is, Dumbledore continued, you may find yourselves capable of magic beyond the standard curriculum. This could be disruptive in a classroom setting if not properly channeled. We're offering extra sessions to help you both understand and control these emerging abilities, McGonagall explained. Consider it a form of specialized training. Harry looked at Dobby, who nodded eagerly. We would be honored, the elf said. Excellent, Dumbledore beamed. Now, one last matter before you join your housemates. The Ministry has taken an interest in your situation. Harry groaned. Let me guess, the Department for Regulation of Magical Creatures. Among others, Dumbledore confirmed. I've managed to forestall any official intervention for now, but be prepared for occasional inspections. The Ministry is particularly concerned about the precedent your bond might set for other house elves. You mean they're afraid other house elves might want the same thing, Harry said flatly. Precisely, Dumbledore didn't bother denying it. Change is frightening to those with a vested interest in the status quo. We'll be careful, Harry promised. Good. Now off to bed, both of you. And Harry? Do try to have a normal school year for once. Harry laughed despite himself. I'll do my best, Professor. As they followed McGonagall to Gryffindor Tower, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that normal had left the building the moment Dobby appeared in his bedroom at Privet Drive. And somehow, he was perfectly okay with that. Life at Hogwarts quickly settled into a routine, albeit an unusual one. Harry attended classes with Dobby sitting beside him, an arrangement that initially raised eyebrows but soon became accepted as the new normal. To everyone's surprise, Dobby proved an eager student, absorbing lessons with remarkable aptitude despite never having held a wand. House elves understand magic differently, he explained when Hermione questioned him about it. We feel the patterns and flows that wizards access through wands and incantations. Your way is more precise but limited. Ours is broader but less focused. And now you're learning both approaches, Hermione realized. That's brilliant. Their private sessions with Flitwick revealed more about their evolving abilities. The tiny professor was beside himself with excitement as he documented their progress. Mr. Potter can now sense magical signatures without a wand, quite extraordinary for a wizard his age. And Dobby's capability for directed magical energy rivals that of a fully qualified wizard, but without the limitations of wand-based casting. Not everyone was thrilled with their partnership, of course. Draco Malfoy took every opportunity to make snide comments about Harry's pet elf, while Snape seemed personally offended by Dobby's presence in his classroom. "I don't recall Hogwarts extending admission to house elves, Potter," he sneered during their first potions class. "Or is this another case of special treatment for our celebrity?" Professor Dumbledore approved Dobby's presence, "Sir," Harry replied evenly. "Due to our magical bond." "Ah yes, this bond." Snape's lip curled. "How convenient that you found yet another way to bend the rules." Despite such opposition, Harry found himself happier than he'd ever been at Hogwarts. The bond with Dobby provided a constant sense of companionship and support. They could communicate without words when needed, sharing impressions and warnings. This proved especially useful during Quidditch practice, where Dobby could sense bludgers coming before Harry could see them. "Duck right, Harry Potter." Dobby would call from the sidelines seconds before a bludger whizzed past. "That's cheating." Oliver would complain half-heartedly, though even he had to admit that Harry's reflexes had improved dramatically. As October approached, their bond continued to evolve in unexpected ways. During a defense against the dark arts lesson with the new professor, Remus Lupin, Harry discovered he could channel magic through Dobby from across the room. They were practicing the ridiculous charm against a boggart. When Neville froze in terror before Snape, Harry instinctively reached out through their bond. Dobby, standing in the back of the classroom, caught Harry's intention and snapped his fingers. Instantly, Boggart Snape's black robes transformed into Augusta Longbottom's vulture hat and green dress, breaking the tension and allowing Neville to complete the spell. Professor Lupin's eyebrows shot up. "Impressive wandless transfiguration, Mr. Potter." "Or should I be complimenting Dobby?" "Both, I think," Harry admitted. "We're still figuring out how it works." Lupin nodded thoughtfully. "Your mother had a gift for intuitive magic as well. She would have been fascinated by your bond." The casual mention of Harry's mother caught him off guard. Few teachers ever mentioned his parents so naturally. It made him instantly warm to Lupin, who seemed to genuinely care about his students in a way few defense professors had before. But the biggest test of their bond came during the first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor versus Hufflepuff in a raging thunderstorm. Conditions were atrocious, with wind and rain making visibility nearly impossible. Harry could barely see his own hands, let alone the tiny golden snitch. "Use our connection," Dobby suggested before the match. "I will watch from the highest stand. My eyes see differently than wizard eyes." It was worth a try. As Harry circled above the pitch, half-blind in the downpour, he opened his mind to Dobby's senses. Suddenly, he could perceive magical signatures shimmering through the rain, players, brooms, and there, a distinctive flutter of enchanted gold. Harry dived, trusting Dobby's magical sight more than his own rain-lashed vision. The Hufflepuff seeker, Cedric Diggory, was closer to the snitch but hadn't spotted it yet. Then it happened. The temperature plummeted. Ice formed on Harry's broom. Through their bond, Harry felt Dobby's alarm spike. "Dementors! Below you!" Harry looked down and saw them, at least 100 Dementors floating onto the pitch, their hollow faces turned upward. The screaming started in his head again, his mother's voice, pleading. "Harry Potter! Focus on our bond." Dobby's voice cut through the fog. "Feel my magic joining yours." Harry concentrated on the golden thread between them, feeling Dobby's energy flowing into him. Together, they created a shield of sorts, not a true Patronus, but a golden barrier that kept the Dementor's influence at bay just long enough. With a final surge of determination, Harry stretched out his hand and closed his fingers around the snitch, seconds before a particularly violent gust of wind would have blown it away. The crowd erupted as Madame Hooch's whistle signaled the end of the match. Harry barely heard it. His focus was on landing safely as teachers rushed onto the field to drive back the Dementors. That was incredible. Ron shouted as the team surrounded Harry in a muddy group hug. How did you see the snitch in this weather? Dobby helped, Harry said simply, looking up to where the elf was making his way down from the stands, beaming with pride despite being soaked to the skin. Later, in the cozy warmth of the Gryffindor common room celebration, Harry pulled Dobby aside. We make a pretty good team, he said quietly. The best team, Dobby agreed, accepting a butterbeer from Fred Weasley with a grateful nod. But Harry Potter should know, the Dementors are drawn to you specifically. I felt it today. Why me? I don't know, Dobby admitted. But whatever happens, we will face it together. Harry nodded, glancing around at his celebrating housemates. For the moment, at least, life was good. He had his friends, Hogwarts, and now Dobby, a most unusual ally who was rapidly becoming one of the most important people in his life. But as he sipped his butterbeer, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that their bond was attracting attention beyond just curious classmates and disapproving professors. Something bigger was brewing, and Lucius Malfoy's threat about broken bonds lingered in the back of his mind like a shadow. Whatever comes, Harry agreed, raising his butterbeer to clink against Dobby's, we face it together. The golden thread between them pulsed brightly in agreement, visible to everyone in the common room, a physical manifestation of a promise that would soon be tested in ways neither of them could imagine. Chapter 2, The Chambers Challenge. November swept into Hogwarts with bitter winds and an atmosphere thick with whispers. The Dementor incident at the Quidditch match had supercharged the rumors about Harry and Dobby's unusual bond. Students stared as they walked the corridors together, the golden thread between them pulsing with untamed magic that seemed to grow stronger by the day. You'd think they'd have something better to talk about by now, Harry grumbled one morning as they made their way to breakfast, a cluster of first-years scattering at their approach. People fear what they don't understand, Dobby replied, now walking with a straight-backed confidence that made him seem taller than his 3-foot height. And our bond is unlike anything they've seen. You're starting to sound like Dumbledore, Harry said with a grin. Next you'll be offering everyone lemon drops. Dobby's laugh, a sound that had become more natural and less squeaky over the past months, drew even more stares from passing students. Speaking of Dumbledore, Harry continued in a lower voice, I caught him watching us again in defense yesterday. That makes the 3rd time this week. He's curious, Dobby said, reaching for a piece of toast as they sat down at the Gryffindor table, another novelty that still raised eyebrows among the staff. Our magic is evolving faster than anyone expected. That much was undeniable. What had started as a simple awareness of each other's presence had blossomed into something far more complex. They could now share senses, combine magical abilities, and even, in moments of extreme need, draw on each other's magical reserves. Professor Flitwick's extra sessions had quickly transformed from monitoring to active experimentation. Have you noticed, Hermione said, joining them with an armful of books, that you're starting to finish each other's sentences? We are not, Harry and Dobby replied simultaneously, then looked at each other in surprise. Ron snorted into his pumpkin juice. Not at all. Hermione wasn't deterred. I've been researching magical bonds in the library. The closest parallel I can find is twin magic, but even that doesn't explain half of what you two can do. Any luck finding information about the Chamber of Secrets? Harry asked, deliberately changing the subject. The ominous message about the chamber being opened had appeared on Halloween, followed by Mrs. Norris being petrified. The school had been on edge ever since. Nothing concrete, Hermione sighed. Just the same old legend about Salazar Slytherin's monster. I've been through everything in the main library section. Maybe we need to check the restricted section, Ron suggested through a mouthful of eggs. With what permission slip? Hermione challenged. A mischievous glint appeared in Dobby's eye. House elves don't need permission to move around Hogwarts. Harry caught his meaning immediately. Dobby, you're brilliant. You could get into the restricted section easily. I'm not sure that's what Dumbledore had in mind when he allowed Dobby to stay, Hermione said, though she couldn't quite hide her interest. Hermione Granger worries too much, Dobby said with a grin that would have been unthinkable on his face just months ago. Dobby will be careful. We'll go tonight, Harry decided. After everyone's asleep. As they finished breakfast and headed to Transfiguration, Harry felt a familiar ripple through their bond, a sensation he'd come to recognize as Dobby picking up magical traces that human senses couldn't detect. What is it? He asked quietly. Dobby frowned, his large eyes scanning the corridor. Something off. A magic that doesn't belong. He shook his head. It's gone now. Harry had learned to trust these intuitions. 3 times in the past week, Dobby had sensed strange magical disturbances throughout the castle. Each time, the sensation vanished before they could identify the source. Could it be related to the chamber? Possibly, Dobby admitted. The magic feels old. And angry. McGonagall's lesson on cross-species transfiguration kept them too busy for further discussion, especially when Dobby, who had taken to carrying a practice wand crafted by Ollivander under Dumbledore's special request, managed to transform a teacup into a perfect tortoise on his first try. Exceptional work, Dobby, McGonagall said, actually smiling. 10 points too. She faltered, then continued, well, to Gryffindor, I suppose. Thank you, Professor, Dobby beamed, ignoring the scowl from Draco Malfoy across the room. Ever since their confrontation in Diagon Alley, Malfoy had made it his mission to undermine Harry and Dobby's partnership. His favorite taunt involved loudly speculating about what his father was planning. Only a matter of time, Draco would say within earshot. Father's found an ancient ritual that'll return wayward house elves to their rightful masters. Won't be so smug then, will you, Potter? Harry tried to ignore these threats, but they nagged at him. Lucius Malfoy had influence at the Ministry and a reputation for dark magic. And Harry hadn't forgotten that strange book Lucius had slipped into Ginny Weasley's cauldron, the one that had mysteriously disappeared before Harry could mention it to Mr. Weasley. That night, Harry waited until Ron's snores filled their dormitory before slipping out of bed. He didn't need to wake Dobby, who slept on a specially conjured bed near Harry's. The elf was already awake, sensing Harry's intention through their bond. Ready? Harry whispered. Dobby nodded, taking Harry's hand. With a soft pop that was far quieter than normal apparition, they vanished from the dormitory and reappeared inside the library's restricted section. That's so much better than sneaking around under the invisibility cloak, Harry whispered, still amazed by how their bond had modified Dobby's apparition ability to include him, something that should have been impossible within Hogwarts. The castle's wards don't affect house elf magic the same way, Dobby explained softly. Now, what are we looking for? Anything about the Chamber of Secrets or Slytherin's monster, Harry said, pulling out his wand. Lumos. The narrow beam illuminated rows of ancient, forbidding tomes. Many had no titles on their spines, while others were written in languages Harry couldn't read. This could take all night, he muttered. Not necessarily, Dobby said thoughtfully. He closed his eyes, placing a palm against a nearby shelf. Books have their own kind of magic. If I concentrate. Harry felt Dobby drawing on their shared power, extending his magical senses through the library. The golden thread between them brightened as Harry instinctively supported the effort, lending his raw magical strength to Dobby's more refined sensing ability. There, Dobby said suddenly, opening his eyes. He moved with certainty to a shelf near the back, reaching for a small, unassuming black volume wedged between 2 larger texts. This one is calling to the magic I've been sensing around the castle. The book's cover was simple leather with no title, but when Dobby handed it to Harry, he felt an immediate chill. Opening it cautiously, Harry found yellowed pages covered in spidery handwriting. Secrets of the Darkest Creatures, Harry read from the first page. By. I can't make out the author. The magic feels similar to what I've been sensing, Dobby confirmed. Not identical, but related. They found a secluded corner and began paging through the book. Most entries described familiar dark creatures, vampires, werewolves, dementors, but with disturbing details not mentioned in their textbooks. Near the middle, Harry's finger stopped on a page heading. Basilisk, he read aloud. King of Serpents. The description that followed sent a chill down his spine, a giant serpent that killed with its gaze, feared spiders, and could live for centuries. But it was a marginal note in faded ink that made Harry's heart race. Salazar's final guardian still slumbers beneath, awaiting the heir's command. The entrance lies where water meets whispers. This is it, Harry breathed. The monster in the chamber, it's a basilisk. That would explain the petrifications, Dobby agreed. But why weren't the victims killed? Harry thought back to each incident. Mrs. Norris found near a puddle of water, Colin Creevey with his camera raised to his eye. None of them looked it directly in the eye, he realized. Mrs. Norris must have seen its reflection in the water. Colin through his camera lens. And Justin Finch-Fletchley through nearly headless Nick, Dobby added, catching Harry's train of thought through their bond. He saw the basilisk through a ghost. We need to tell Dumbledore, Harry said, closing the book carefully. Dobby nodded, but suddenly stiffened, his ears perking up. Someone's coming. Without hesitation, he grabbed Harry's hand and brought them back to their dormitory, the stolen book clutched tightly under Harry's arm. That was close, Harry whispered once they were safely back. Who was it? Filch, Dobby said grimly. But Harry Potter, there's something else. Just before we left, I sensed that same strange magic again, stronger this time. It was moving through the library. You think someone else was there? Looking for the same information? Possibly, Dobby said. But the magic felt incomplete. Like an echo rather than a person. Harry frowned, trying to make sense of it all as he hid the book under his mattress. We'll figure it out tomorrow. For now, let's get some sleep. But sleep proved elusive as Harry's mind raced with possibilities. A basilisk in the school. An unknown presence searching the library. And somewhere, an air of Slytherin controlling it all. The next morning brought shocking news that drove all thoughts of sleep deprivation from Harry's mind. The hospital wing is sealed off, Ron reported, returning from an early morning trip to visit his sister Ginny, who'd been feeling unwell for days. Hermione's been petrified. What? Harry gasped. How? When? Last night, apparently. She was found near the library with a mirror in her hand. Harry and Dobby exchanged meaningful glances. The library, where they'd been researching basilisks. Had Hermione figured it out too? We need to see her, Harry said decisively. Pomfrey's not letting anyone in, Ron said miserably. Not until the Mandrake restorative draft is ready. We'll find another way, Harry assured him, feeling Dobby's agreement pulse through their bond. After breakfast, they managed to slip away to an empty classroom to discuss their findings. Harry pulled out the stolen library book. A basilisk makes perfect sense, he told Ron, showing him the entry. And look at this note about the entrance being where water meets whispers. Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Ron exclaimed. She's always going on about how she died 50 years ago, the last time the chamber was supposedly opened. Exactly, Harry nodded. And Hermione must have worked it out too. That's why she had a mirror, to check around corners. But who's the heir? Who's controlling this thing? Harry had been pondering that very question. I've been wondering about that book Lucius Malfoy slipped into Ginny's cauldron in Diagon Alley. What if it was somehow connected to the chamber? You think Malfoy's the heir? Ron asked, his expression darkening. Not Draco, Harry said thoughtfully. He's too obvious, too eager to boast. But maybe Lucius found a way to open the chamber without being physically present. Through Ginny. Ron looked horrified. No way. She's been sick, yeah, but she wouldn't, not willingly, Dobby interrupted, his expression troubled. But there are dark artifacts that can possess or influence wizards. The Malfoys have many such items in their manor. How do you know? Harry asked. I cleaned their hidden chamber beneath the drawing room floor, Dobby said grimly. Many dark objects. Many forbidden things. Lucius Malfoy likes to collect items with history. Ron swallowed hard. If you're right, and Ginny's been possessed somehow, we need to find her right now. They rushed to check the Gryffindor common room and Great Hall, but Ginny was nowhere to be found. With growing anxiety, they approached Percy. Have you seen Ginny? Ron asked his older brother. Percy looked up from his prefect duty roster with a frown. Not since breakfast. She said she wasn't feeling well and was going back to the dormitory. But a quick check confirmed she wasn't there either. I've got a bad feeling about this, Harry muttered. They were heading toward Myrtle's bathroom when a magnified voice echoed through the corridors, Professor McGonagall announcing that all students were to return to their dormitories immediately. The grave tone sent chills down Harry's spine. Something's happened, Ron said, voicing what they were all thinking. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with McGonagall herself. She opened her mouth, likely to scold them for not following instructions, but Harry spoke first. Professor, we know what's in the Chamber of Secrets. It's a basilisk. And we think it's using the pipes to move around the castle. And, he hesitated, glancing at Ron, we think Ginny Weasley might be in danger. McGonagall stared at them in shock. Mr. Potter, how could you possibly? She stopped, her face paling as she registered his words. Miss Weasley. I'm afraid your suspicions may be correct. A new message has appeared on the wall, her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Ron swayed on his feet. Dobby steadied him with surprising strength. We need to find the chamber entrance, Harry said urgently. We think it's in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. McGonagall studied them for a long moment, then made a decision. Come with me. We're going to the headmaster's office. 5 minutes later, they stood in Dumbledore's circular office, explaining everything to him and McGonagall. The stolen library book, which earned them a raised eyebrow but no comment, their basilisk theory, and their suspicions about Lucius Malfoy's book. Most illuminating, Dumbledore said when they finished. And, I fear, most likely correct. Minerva, please alert the other heads of houses. The school will need to be evacuated while we search for Miss Weasley. But sir, Harry protested, we know where the entrance is. We can help. Absolutely not, McGonagall said firmly. This is a job for qualified wizards, not second-year students. With respect, Professor, Dobby spoke up, surprising everyone, Harry Potter and I may be uniquely qualified to help. Our bond gives us abilities that could prove valuable against a basilisk. Such as? Dumbledore asked, his blue eyes suddenly intent. Dobby glanced at Harry, who nodded encouragement. I can sense magic others cannot, including the strange magic we believe is controlling Ginny Weasley. And through our bond, Harry can understand and speak to snakes without being directly vulnerable to their gaze. Harry blinked in surprise. They discovered his Parseltongue ability could be channeled through Dobby during one of Flitwick's experimental sessions, but he hadn't considered its application to their current situation. Dumbledore and McGonagall exchanged glances. An interesting point, Dumbledore conceded. Though still extremely dangerous. It's my sister, Ron said desperately. Please. A sudden commotion from the staircase interrupted them. The office door burst open to reveal Professors Snape and Lockhart, the latter looking distinctly disheveled. Headmaster, Snape said coldly, pushing Lockhart forward, I found our defense against the dark arts professor attempting to flee the castle. It seems he feels his expertise is not required in this situation. Merely packing. Lockhart protested weakly. Strategic retreat to gather specialized equipment. How fortunate we caught you in time, Dumbledore said mildly. As our defense against the dark arts teacher, you'll naturally want to confront this basilisk yourself. Particularly given your extensive experience with such creatures, as detailed in your published works. Lockhart paled visibly. Well, that is to say, in fact, Dumbledore continued, a dangerous twinkle in his eye, I think you'd benefit from Mr. Potter and Dobby's assistance. They've shown remarkable insight into this matter. I hardly think students should be involved, McGonagall began. I agree that Mr. Weasley should remain here, Dumbledore said. But Harry and Dobby share a unique magical bond that may prove essential. Their combined abilities could provide protection even I cannot guarantee. And, he added with a pointed look at Lockhart, Professor Lockhart will ensure their safety, won't you, Gilderoy? Trapped, Lockhart could only nod miserably. Headmaster, Snape interjected, if Potter is going, I should accompany them. Lockhart is. He didn't bother finishing the sentence, his contempt obvious. No, Severus. I need you and Minerva to oversee the school evacuation. Time is of the essence. Dumbledore turned to Harry and Dobby. Show Professor Lockhart to Myrtle's bathroom. But promise me this, if you find the entrance, do not proceed without sending word. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Harry agreed, though privately he knew that if Ginny's life hung in the balance, he'd do whatever was necessary to save her. Dobby's slight squeeze of his hand told Harry the elf had caught that thought through their bond and agreed completely. Absolutely fascinating, this bond of yours, Lockhart babbled nervously as they led him to the second floor. I encountered something similar in my travels through Transylvania, twin vampire hunters who shared a psychic connection. Wrote about it in my book, Voyages with Vampires. Perhaps you read it? Harry ignored him, focusing instead on the sensation of dread growing stronger as they approached Myrtle's bathroom. Beside him, Dobby was unusually tense, his ears slightly flattened. You feel it too? Harry murmured. Dobby nodded. The magic is stronger here. Angry. Hungry. They entered the bathroom to find moaning Myrtle hovering by the sinks, looking surprisingly pleased to have visitors. Oh, it's you, she said when she spotted Harry. Come to ask how I died again. Actually, yes, Harry said. Myrtle, this is really important. How exactly did you die? Myrtle seemed delighted by the question. Oh, it was dreadful, she said with relish. I was hiding in here, crying because Olive Hornby had teased me about my glasses. I heard somebody come in, a boy, speaking funny language. I opened my stall to tell him to go away, and then, she paused dramatically, I died. Just like that? Harry pressed. Did you see anything? Just a pair of great big yellow eyes, over by that sink, she pointed. Harry and Dobby moved to examine the sink. It looked ordinary until Harry spotted a tiny snake etched into the side of one of the taps. This is it, he breathed. Focusing on the snake, he tried to speak Parseltongue, open. Nothing happened. Let me try something, Dobby said, placing one hand on Harry's shoulder and extending the other toward the sink. Focus on the snake through our bond. See it move, hear it hiss. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the image of the snake coming alive. He felt Dobby drawing on their shared magic, channeling Harry's Parseltongue ability through their connection. When Harry opened his eyes, the words flowed naturally, open for the heir of Slytherin. This time, the sink began to move. It sank right out of sight, revealing a large pipe wide enough for a person to slide down. Marvelous! Lockhart exclaimed with obviously false enthusiasm. Well done indeed. Well, my work here is clearly done, so I'll just go and inform Dumbledore. You're going first, Harry said firmly, pointing his wand at the professor. Lockhart's smile vanished. Now really, boys, be reasonable. Either you go willingly, Harry said, or Dobby can help you along. Dobby raised a hand, a small ball of golden energy forming above his palm, a demonstration they'd perfected in Flitwick sessions. No need for that. Lockhart backpedaled, peering nervously down the pipe. Ladies first, perhaps. No. Very well. With visible reluctance, he lowered himself into the pipe and let go. They heard him sliding down, his voice fading into the darkness. After a moment of silence, a distant thud and a disgusted, ugh, echoed up. Sounds safe enough, Harry said with a grim smile. You ready? Dobby nodded. Together. Hand in hand, they slid into the pipe. It was like rushing down an endless, slimy, dark slide. They twisted and turned, bumping against the sides as the pipe descended steeply. Finally, they shot out the end with a wet thud, landing on a damp stone floor. Charming place, Harry muttered, helping Dobby up. Lumos. His wand light revealed a stone tunnel large enough to stand in. The floor was littered with small animal bones that crunched underfoot. Lockhart stood nearby, brushing slime from his robes with a look of utter disgust. Miles under the school, I'd wager, he said shakily. Right under the lake, probably. This way, Harry said, pointing down the tunnel. And remember, if you see any movement, close your eyes immediately. They moved forward cautiously. The tunnel curved repeatedly, each bend increasing the tension. Harry felt Dobby's awareness stretching outward, scanning for magical threats. Something ahead, Dobby whispered suddenly. Something large. They rounded the next bend and saw it, a vast shape lying across the tunnel. Harry raised his wand, the light falling on what appeared to be a giant snake's skin, vivid green and at least 20 feet long. Bloody hell, Harry whispered. Good Lord, Lockhart moaned, falling to his knees. Good Lord. Get up, Harry ordered, prodding him with his foot. Lockhart did rise, but as he did, he lunged at Harry, knocking him backward. Before Harry could recover, Lockhart had grabbed his fallen wand. The adventure ends here, boys, he declared, his composure suddenly restored. I'll take a bit of this skin back up to the school, tell them I was too late to save the girl, and that you two tragically lost your minds at the sight of her mangled body. Say goodbye to your memories. He raised Harry's wand and shouted, Obliviate. But Dobby was faster. With a flick of his hand, he deflected the spell upward. The wand exploded with the force of a small bomb, blasting the ceiling. Harry grabbed Dobby and pulled him back as chunks of rock crashed down, quickly forming a solid barrier between them and Lockhart. When the dust settled, Harry called out, Lockhart. Are you all right? A feeble groan answered him. Yes, came Lockhart's dazed voice. But I'm rather stuck on this side. Quite a lot of rubble. Serves you right, Harry muttered. He turned to Dobby. Can you apparate us to the other side? Dobby concentrated for a moment, then shook his head. There's strong magic ahead interfering with my ability. We'll have to continue forward and find another way out. Lockhart. Harry called. Go back and try to shift some of this rock. We'll go on and try to find Ginny. Without waiting for a response, Harry and Dobby continued down the tunnel. After a few minutes, they reached a solid wall carved with two entwined serpents, their eyes set with gleaming emeralds. Another door, Harry said. This time, he didn't hesitate. Drawing on their bond, he channeled Parseltongue through their connection, open. The serpents parted as the wall cracked open, the halves sliding smoothly out of sight. Harry and Dobby stepped forward into the Chamber of Secrets. They stood at the end of a very long, dimly lit chamber. Stone pillars entwined with carved serpents rose to support a ceiling lost in darkness. At the far end stood a giant statue of Salazar Slytherin, ancient and monkey-like with a long thin beard. And between the pillars, face down on the stone floor, lay a small, black-robed figure with flaming red hair. Ginny. Harry sprinted toward her, Dobby at his side. He dropped to his knees beside her, turning her over. Her face was white as marble, and she felt cold to the touch, but a faint pulse fluttered in her wrist. She's alive. But barely. She won't wake, said a soft voice. Harry spun around to see a tall, black-haired boy leaning against the nearest pillar, watching them. He was strangely blurred around the edges, as though viewed through a misted window. Tom Riddle. Harry recognized him from the diary visions. What do you mean, she won't wake? She's not, she's still alive, Riddle said. But only just. Harry stared at him. Are you a ghost? A memory, Riddle replied. Preserved in a diary for 50 years. He pointed toward the floor near Slytherin's statue. There lay a small black book, the very one Harry had seen Lucius slip into Ginny's cauldron. You're the one controlling the basilisk, Harry realized. Through Ginny. Very good, Potter, Riddle smiled, a cold, unsettling expression. Little Ginny poured her soul into my diary, sharing all her pitiful worries and fears. As she grew weaker, I grew stronger. Strong enough to start feeding Miss Weasley a few of my secrets, to start pouring a little of my soul back into her. You possessed her, Dobby said, his voice tight with anger. Riddle's eyes flicked to the elf with disdain. Indeed. And who might you be, creature? I am Dobby, the elf replied with dignity. Friend and bond partner to Harry Potter. How? Unusual, Riddle said, studying the golden thread connecting them with sudden interest. I've never seen such a bond. But no matter. Soon, Ginny Weasley will die, and I will cease to be a memory. Lord Voldemort will return, very much alive. Voldemort? Harry stared at him in confusion. Riddle smiled again. Using Harry's dropped wand, he traced 3 shimmering words in the air, Tom Marvolo Riddle. Then he waved the wand once, and the letters rearranged themselves. I am Lord Voldemort, you see. He whispered. It was a name I was already using at Hogwarts, to my most intimate friends only, of course. You think I was going to use my filthy Muggle father's name forever? I, in whose veins runs the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself. Harry felt Dobby tense beside him, the elf's magical awareness clearly detecting the growing threat. Through their bond, Harry sensed Dobby's urgent message. Riddle was becoming more solid by the minute as Ginny grew weaker. Now, Harry, Riddle continued conversationally, I have many questions for you. How is it that you, a skinny boy with no extraordinary magical talent, managed to defeat the greatest wizard of all time? How did you escape with nothing but a scar, while Lord Voldemort's powers were destroyed? Why do you care? Harry asked, stalling for time as he tried to think of a plan. Voldemort was after your time. Voldemort, Riddle said softly, is my past, present, and future. It doesn't matter how I survived, Harry said. What matters is that I did. And I'll stop you again. Riddle's face contorted with sudden rage. We'll see about that. Let's match the powers of Lord Voldemort, heir of Salazar Slytherin, against the famous Harry Potter and his house elf. He turned to the statue and spoke in Parseltongue, Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four. The statue's mouth began to open, revealing a black hole from which something was stirring. Harry felt Dobby's hand close around his wrist. Harry Potter, don't look at its eyes. I have an idea. Through their bond, Harry understood immediately. As the basilisk began to slither out onto the chamber floor, Harry closed his physical eyes but opened his magical senses through Dobby. The elf's perception washed over him, a world of magical signatures and energy flows rather than physical sight. The basilisk appeared as a massive coil of ancient, malevolent magic. Kill them. Riddle commanded in Parseltongue. The basilisk surged forward. Without looking directly at it, Harry and Dobby leapt in opposite directions. Their bond stretched between them like a golden tripwire, catching the basilisk mid-strike and momentarily confusing it. It's working. Harry called. It can't focus on both of us at once. They began to circle the chamber, forcing the serpent to twist back and forth between targets. Through Dobby's magical sight, Harry could track the basilisk's movements while avoiding its deadly gaze. But Riddle caught on quickly. "Ignore the elf," he hissed to the basilisk. "Kill the boy." The serpent turned its full attention to Harry, who dove behind a pillar as massive fangs shattered stone where he had stood seconds before. He needed a weapon, something, anything to fight back. Suddenly, a burst of flame erupted above Slytherin's statue. Fawkes the Phoenix circled the chamber, dropping something at Harry's feet before attacking the basilisk's eyes with his talons. The basilisk screamed in pain as Fawkes blinded it, making its gaze harmless. Harry looked down at what the Phoenix had delivered, the Sorting Hat. "How is this supposed to help?" he gasped, picking it up. To his astonishment, the hat constricted, and something heavy thudded against his head. Stars winking before his eyes, Harry pulled out a gleaming silver sword with rubies the size of eggs embedded in the hilt. "Harry Potter." "The sword!" Dobby called. "Use our bond." Understanding flashed between them. Harry gripped the sword with both hands, feeling Dobby's magic flowing into the blade through their connection. The sword began to glow with the same golden light as their bond. The blinded basilisk was still deadly, guided by sound and smell. It lunged again, but now Harry was ready. Channeling his magic through the sword, enhanced by Dobby's power, he thrust upward as the serpent struck. The blade pierced the roof of the basilisk's mouth, sinking deep into its brain. But even as the creature died, a single fang sank into Harry's arm. Searing pain spread rapidly from the wound as Harry pulled the sword free and slumped to the ground, the broken fang still lodged in his flesh. "Harry!" Dobby was at his side in an instant, cradling his head. "You're both dead," Riddle laughed, standing over them. "Even the elf's magic can't save you from basilisk venom. I'm going to sit here and watch you die, Harry Potter. Take your time. I'm in no hurry." Harry could feel the poison spreading. His vision blurred, the chamber dissolving around him. Through their bond, he felt Dobby's frantic attempts to heal him, but the venom was too powerful, resisting even their combined magic. Then Harry's gaze fell on the diary lying near Ginny. A desperate idea formed. "Dobby," he whispered, "the diary. It's the source of his power." Without hesitation, Dobby grabbed the basilisk fang from Harry's arm and lunged toward the diary. Riddle realized too late what was happening. "No," he screamed, diving to intercept. But Dobby was faster. Channeling every ounce of his and Harry's combined magic, he plunged the fang into the heart of the diary. Ink spurted from the book like blood. Riddle writhed and twisted, screaming in agony as his form began to splinter and dissolve. A long, dreadful, piercing scream echoed through the chamber, and then he was gone. Harry's wand fell to the stone floor with a clatter. Silence except for the steady drip of ink from the ruined diary. "Harry Potter must not die," Dobby said fiercely, returning to Harry's side. Tears streamed down his face as he placed both hands over the wound. Harry felt consciousness slipping away. The venom was too strong, too close to his heart. "It's okay, Dobby," he murmured. "You did it. You saved Ginny." "No." Dobby's voice broke. "I will not lose Harry Potter. I will not." A soft musical cry made them look up. Fawkes was soaring back down, his pearly tears falling onto Harry's wound. Where they landed, the pain vanished. As the Phoenix wept, the wound began to heal, the venom neutralized by the powerful magical tears. "Phoenix tears," Harry whispered. "They have healing powers." "Thank you, Great Phoenix," Dobby said reverently as Fawkes finished his work and flew to perch nearby. Slowly, Harry sat up, testing his arm. The wound was completely gone, not even a scar remaining. Across the chamber, Ginny was stirring too, color returning to her face as Riddle's hold on her life force broke. Harry crawled to her side. "Ginny, it's all right. It's over. Riddle's gone." Her eyes fluttered open, then widened in horror as she took in the dead basilisk, the bloody sword, the ink-soaked diary. "Harry, it was me, but I didn't mean to," Riddle made me," she began to sob uncontrollably. "It's okay," Harry said gently. "We know you were possessed. No one will blame you." "But I'll be expelled," she wailed. "I've wanted to come to Hogwarts ever since Bill came, and now I'll have to leave." "No one is expelling anyone," came a familiar voice from the chamber entrance. Dumbledore stood there, surveying the scene with a mixture of relief and amazement. Behind him, a dust-covered Ron peered anxiously at his sister. "Ginny!" Ron rushed forward, engulfing her in a hug. "How did you get in?" Harry asked Dumbledore. "Fawkes alerted me," the headmaster explained, stroking his phoenix's feathers. "And Professor Lockhart was most helpful in showing me where you had entered, though he seems rather confused about his own identity at the moment." "His memory charm backfired," Harry explained. "Ah," Dumbledore nodded. "A most unfortunate accident." His eyes twinkled in a way that suggested he found it anything but unfortunate. "And I see you found Godric Gryffindor's sword. Only a true Gryffindor could have pulled that from the hat, Harry." "It wasn't just me," Harry said firmly, looking at Dobby. "We couldn't have done it without our bond. Dobby was the one who destroyed the diary." Dobby ducked his head modestly, but Harry could feel his pride through their connection. "Indeed," Dumbledore agreed. "Your partnership continues to yield remarkable results. Perhaps more remarkable than even I anticipated." "The diary belonged to Voldemort," Harry explained. "He preserved his 16-year-old self in it. Lucius Malfoy slipped it to Ginny in Diagon Alley." Dumbledore's expression darkened. "A clever plan. Had you not discovered the truth, Tom Riddle would have returned to full power, using Miss Weasley's life force." "And the basilisk?" Ron asked, looking nervously at the massive dead serpent. "Will trouble Hogwarts no more," Dumbledore assured him. "Now, I think we all deserve to leave this chamber. Miss Weasley's parents are waiting anxiously in my office." "How do we get out?" Harry asked, suddenly realizing they were still deep beneath the school with a pile of rubble blocking the tunnel. Dumbledore smiled. "Fawkes can carry an extraordinary weight. I believe if we all hold hands, he can lift us back through the pipe." And so they formed a chain, Dumbledore holding Fawkes's tail feathers, Ginny clutching his hand, followed by Ron, Harry, and Dobby. With an upward surge, the phoenix lifted them through the darkness, back toward light and safety. The celebration in Dumbledore's office was both joyful and emotional. Mrs. Weasley alternated between hugging Ginny, sobbing on Mr. Weasley's shoulder, and thanking Harry and Dobby profusely. McGonagall sat nearby, hand pressed to her heart, still processing the full story they'd shared. "What interests me most," Dumbledore said when the initial commotion had died down, "is how Lord Voldemort managed to enchant Ginny when my sources tell me he is currently hiding in the forests of Albania." "It was the diary," Harry explained. "Riddle wrote in it when he was 16. He preserved his memory in its pages." "Brilliant," Dumbledore said softly. "Of course, he was probably the most brilliant student Hogwarts has ever seen." He turned to Ginny. "Few wizards would have understood how to operate such an object. Very few would have been fooled by it. No, Miss Weasley, you have nothing to fear. Older and wiser wizards have been hoodwinked by Lord Voldemort." A sudden commotion at the door interrupted them. Lucius Malfoy burst in, fury etched in every line of his face. Behind him, cowering in bandages, lurked Dobby's replacement in the Malfoy household, a timid house elf named Nippy. "So," Malfoy said, his cold eyes fixed on Dumbledore. "You've returned. The governors suspended you, but you saw fit to return anyway. When they heard Arthur Weasley's daughter had been taken into the chamber, they saw fit to recall me immediately," Dumbledore smiled. "Curiously, several of them seemed to think you had threatened their families if they didn't agree to suspend me in the first place." Malfoy's face paled slightly. "So," he sneered, changing the subject, "you've stopped the attacks." "Good, good." "Indeed," said Dumbledore. "We have." "Well." Malfoy demanded. Who was responsible? The same person as last time, Lucius, Dumbledore said. But this time, Lord Voldemort acted through this. He held up the ruined diary. Using this diary to control an innocent student. Malfoy's eyes bulged. I see. A clever plan, Dumbledore continued, still watching Malfoy closely. Because if Harry and Dobby hadn't discovered this book, Ginny Weasley would have taken the blame. No one would ever have been able to prove she hadn't acted of her own free will. Harry noticed Dobby making strange gestures, pointing at the diary, then at Malfoy, then punching his own head. Understanding dawned. Don't you want to know how Ginny got hold of that diary, Mr. Malfoy? Harry asked innocently. How should I know how the stupid little girl got hold of it? Malfoy snapped. Because you gave it to her, Harry said. In flourish and blots. You picked up her old Transfiguration book and slipped the diary inside it. Malfoy's hands clenched into fists. Prove it, he hissed. I think that would be quite difficult, Dumbledore said, smiling. Since the diary has been destroyed. However, I would advise you, Lucius, not to go giving out any more of Lord Voldemort's old school things. If any more of them find their way into innocent hands, Arthur Weasley will make sure they are traced back to you. Lucius Malfoy stood still for a moment, right hand twitching as though longing for his wand. Instead, he turned to leave. Come, Nippy, he barked at his elf. Sir, Harry called after him. I believe you've lost something else of yours as well. He gestured to Dobby, who stood proudly at Harry's side. Though lost isn't the right word. Dobby has found his true place. Malfoy's face contorted with hatred. That remains to be seen, Potter, he said softly. House elf magic is ancient and bound by rules you cannot possibly understand. Our business is far from concluded. I think it is concluded, Lucius, Dumbledore said, his voice suddenly hard. The magical covenant between Harry and Dobby supersedes all prior claims. The Ministry has acknowledged as much, reluctantly though it may be. Malfoy's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing more, storming from the office with Nippy scurrying behind him. I don't like the sound of that, Harry said after they'd gone. He's planning something. No doubt, Dumbledore agreed. Lucius Malfoy is not one to surrender what he considers his property without a fight. But for now, you are both safe at Hogwarts. The conversation turned to lighter matters then, house points for their bravery, 200 each for Harry and Dobby, plus 50 for Ron, cancellation of end-of-year exams. Oh, no, said Hermione, who had been successfully revived along with the other petrified victims, and Lockhart's permanent departure from the teaching staff, tragic loss of memory, may never recover, didn't even remember he was a wizard. As the meeting broke up, Dumbledore asked Harry and Dobby to stay behind for a moment. What you did in the chamber was extraordinary, he said once they were alone. Few fully qualified wizards could have faced what you did and survived, let alone triumphed. It was our bond, Harry said. Without it, I don't think we would have made it. Indeed. And therein lies both wonder and concern. Dumbledore's expression grew serious. Your bond continues to develop in ways I had not anticipated. The ability to share magical perception, to channel magic through objects like Gryffindor's sword, these are advanced magical phenomena. Is that a problem, Headmaster? Dobby asked. Not a problem, exactly, Dumbledore said carefully. But such power rarely goes unnoticed or unchallenged. Lucius Malfoy is merely the first to perceive your partnership as a threat. There will be others. Voldemort, Harry guessed. Dumbledore nodded. When he learns of your bond, and he will see it as both a curiosity and a danger. You must be prepared. We will be, Harry promised, feeling Dobby's agreement pulse through their connection. Good. For now, rest. Celebrate your victory. The challenges ahead will come soon enough. The remaining weeks of term passed in a haze of perfect weather and relaxation. With exams cancelled and the basilisk threat eliminated, the castle atmosphere was lighter than Harry could ever remember. Hagrid returned from Azkaban to a hero's welcome, Ginny recovered from her ordeal with the support of her friends and family, and Harry and Dobby became minor celebrities, though the attention made Harry uncomfortable. Their bond continued to be a subject of fascination among students and staff alike. The Hogwarts house elves, in particular, viewed Dobby with a mixture of awe and wariness. "They don't know what to make of me," Dobby confided to Harry after a visit to the kitchens. "They see how our bond has changed me, and it frightens them." Change always frightens those who have accepted their chains. "Are you trying to start a revolution?" Harry asked, only half joking. Dobby considered this seriously. "Not a revolution. An evolution. House elves have forgotten much of our original magic, our true nature. Before wizards bound us, we were different. More like I am becoming." "What were you like?" Harry asked, genuinely curious. "We were guardians," Dobby said, his eyes distant as if accessing ancient memories. "Protectors of magical places and magical children. We formed partnerships, not servitude. Somewhere along the way, partnership became ownership." Harry thought about this as they walked along the edge of the lake. "And our bond is helping you remember?" "Not remember, discover," Dobby corrected. "I'm becoming something new, yet also something very old. And it frightens those who profit from the current arrangement. Like the Malfoys." "Like many wizarding families," Dobby nodded. "If one house elf can break free and form a true magical partnership, others might follow." The implications were profound. Harry hadn't fully considered the wider impact their bond might have on wizard-elf relations. No wonder the Ministry had been concerned. "Whatever happens," Harry said, "we'll face it together." Dobby smiled, the golden thread between them brightening with shared resolve. Together. On the journey home aboard the Hogwarts Express, Harry, Ron, and Hermione shared a compartment with Dobby, Fred, George, and Ginny. The mood was cheerful as they speculated about next year and played Exploding Snap. Only when the conversation turned to summer plans did Harry's spirits dampen. "You'll have to come and stay this summer," Ron told Harry. "Both of you," he added, including Dobby. "I'll send an owl." "Thanks," Harry said. "I'll need something to look forward to." The prospect of returning to the Dursleys, even briefly, was grim, though he suspected their fear of his magic would be significantly amplified now that he had a bonded house elf at his side. As if reading his thoughts, which, through their bond, he probably was, Dobby leaned closer. "Harry Potter will not suffer this summer," he promised quietly. "Dobby will make sure of it." The gleam in the elf's eye suggested plans already in motion, plans the Dursleys would likely find most unsettling. Harry couldn't suppress a grin. Perhaps this summer wouldn't be so bad after all. In a hidden room beneath Malfoy Manor, Lucius Malfoy stood before an ancient stone altar, its surface carved with symbols older than Hogwarts itself. Surrounding him were a dozen cloaked figures, former Death Eaters who still maintained certain traditions, away from the Ministry's prying eyes. "The bond grows stronger," Malfoy told them. "The boy and the elf defeated a basilisk through their combined power. If left unchecked, they could become a genuine threat." "To the Dark Lord?" asked Crabbe Sr. skeptically. "To our way of life," Malfoy corrected smoothly. "Think, gentlemen. If house elves begin forming magical covenants with wizards as equals, what becomes of our authority? Our hierarchies? Our power?" Murmurs of concern rippled through the gathering. "What do you propose?" Not asked. Malfoy placed an ancient text on the altar, opening it to a marked page. "There are older magics than wizard spells. Deeper bindings than house elf servitude. Before the Ministry, before Hogwarts, there were ways to sever even the strongest magical bonds. Dark magic," someone whispered. "Necessary magic," Malfoy countered. "The ritual requires preparation. Specific components gathered under specific conditions. We have the summer to prepare. By the time Potter returns to Hogwarts, we will be ready to reclaim what is rightfully ours. The cloaked figures nodded in agreement, none noticing the tiny eyes watching from a crack in the wall, the eyes of Nippy, who had been listening with growing horror. As the meeting concluded and the wizards departed, Nippy remained hidden, trembling with an unfamiliar emotion. For the first time in her life, she felt something beyond fear and obedience. She felt rebellion. Dobby had shown another way was possible. And now, she needed to warn him. Chapter 3, Rising Power. Harry woke to sunlight streaming through the window of Ron's bedroom at the Burrow, the smell of bacon wafting up from the kitchen below. For a moment, he just lay there, savoring the sensation. 2 weeks into summer, and still no Dursleys in sight. Life was good. Harry Potter is awake, Dobby said from the small bed next to Harry's. The elf sat cross-legged, hovering about 6 inches above the mattress, a new ability he'd been practicing. Show off, Harry yawned, grinning. How long have you been up? Hours, Dobby replied. I don't need much sleep anymore. That was an understatement. Since arriving at the Burrow, Dobby had slept maybe 3 hours a night, spending the rest of his time exploring his rapidly evolving abilities or poring over ancient magical texts Mr. Weasley had borrowed from a friend at the Ministry. The changes in Dobby were becoming impossible to ignore. He'd grown taller, now nearly 4 feet instead of 3. His bat-like ears had become more proportional to his head, and his huge green eyes, while still large and expressive, no longer bulged comically. Even his skin had changed, taking on a subtle golden-green hue that seemed to glow from within. What's on the agenda today? Harry asked, pulling on a t-shirt. Fred and George wanted to test their new prank products on us, Dobby reminded him. And Mrs. Weasley asked for help degenoming the garden. Right, Harry nodded. And we still need to practice that shield technique from yesterday. Their training sessions had become a daily ritual. After the chamber incident, they'd both agreed they needed to develop their abilities systematically. Even Hermione, who joined them at the Burrow last week, approved of their structured approach, though she insisted on documenting everything in a detailed journal she'd labeled Unprecedented Magical Symbiosis, a case study. Morning, you two, Ron mumbled as Harry and Dobby headed downstairs. Ron had finally gotten used to their bond, though he still sometimes did double takes when Dobby demonstrated a new ability. The kitchen was its usual morning chaos, Mr. Weasley buried in the Daily Prophet, the twins whispering suspiciously in a corner, Percy polishing his head boy badge, and Mrs. Weasley orchestrating multiple cooking implements with her wand. Just in time, she said warmly. Breakfast is nearly ready. Arthur, dear, put the paper down and eat while it's hot. Mr. Weasley folded his newspaper reluctantly. Ministry's in an uproar again, he told Harry. Another emergency session of the Wisengamot scheduled for today. What about? Harry asked, helping himself to eggs. Regulation of magical partnerships, Mr. Weasley replied, his expression unusually serious. It's aimed at you too, I'm afraid. Certain factions are pushing for strict classification and control of your bond. Harry felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Can they do that? They can try, Mr. Weasley said grimly. Fudge is under considerable pressure from traditional families, the Malfoys among them. What would classification and control actually mean? Hermione asked, ever practical. Restrictions on what magic you can perform together. Regular evaluations by Ministry officials. Possibly limitations on where Dobby can go. Mr. Weasley shook his head. It's all rather medieval, if you ask me. They're afraid, Dobby said matter-of-factly. Our bond challenges the established order. Well, they can't separate you, Mrs. Weasley said firmly, placing a heaping plate in front of Dobby. Dumbledore would never allow it. Even Dumbledore's influence has limits, Mr. Weasley warned. But don't worry, you have allies at the Ministry too. I'll keep you informed. Harry and Dobby exchanged concerned glances, their bond transmitting worry and determination in equal measure. On a brighter note, Mr. Weasley continued, I've managed to get excellent tickets for the Quidditch World Cup next month. Ireland versus Bulgaria should be a spectacular match. The conversation shifted to Quidditch, but Harry remained distracted. The Ministry's interest in their bond was troubling, especially with Lucius Malfoy involved. He hadn't forgotten Malfoy's parting threat at Hogwarts. After breakfast, Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Dobby headed to the orchard for their daily practice session. The golden thread connecting Harry and Dobby was now permanently visible, a shimmering cord of magical energy that pulsed with power. Let's try something new today, Dobby suggested. I've been thinking about how we defeated the basilisk. We channeled our magic through the sword, but what if we could create our own magical objects? Like wands? Ron asked. More versatile, Dobby explained. Wands focus specific kinds of wizard magic. I'm talking about conduits for our combined power. That sounds like advanced magic, Hermione said skeptically. Well, beyond second year, I mean, third year level. Our bond doesn't exactly follow the Hogwarts curriculum, Harry pointed out. What did you have in mind, Dobby? The elf picked up a fallen branch about 2 feet long. This. It's from a rowan tree, naturally magic receptive. You want to make a magic stick? Ron looked doubtful. A focus, Dobby corrected. Neither wand nor staff, but something in between. Something uniquely ours. Harry took the branch, feeling its weight. How do we start? We infuse it with our magic, Dobby said. Like we did with the sword, but deliberately this time. They spent the next hour attempting to channel their combined magic into the branch. Progress was slow, but by lunchtime, the wood had begun to respond, growing warm to the touch and developing faint golden streaks along its length. It's working! Hermione exclaimed, documenting the changes in her journal. The magical signature is fascinating, neither wizard nor house elf, but something new entirely. Taking notes for your future house elf liberation campaign? Ron teased. Hermione blushed. It's important research. What Harry and Dobby are doing could revolutionize magical theory. Not to mention magical politics, Harry added, thinking about the Ministry's emergency session. They returned to the Burrow to find Mrs. Weasley in an agitated state, a formal-looking owl waiting on the kitchen table. It's from the Ministry, she explained worriedly. For you and Dobby. They want you to appear before the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures tomorrow morning. Harry took the official parchment, reading it quickly. We respectfully request your presence for preliminary classification and registration of your magical partnership, he quoted. What happens if we don't go? They could declare your bond unauthorized, Mr. Weasley said, having just fled home for lunch. That would create legal complications, especially when returning to Hogwarts. So we don't have a choice, Harry said flatly. I'll accompany you, Mr. Weasley offered. And I've contacted Dumbledore, he'll meet us there. That was somewhat reassuring, but Harry couldn't shake the feeling that they were being lured into a trap. Why so suddenly? Hermione voiced what they were all thinking. You've been bonded for almost a year. Why is the Ministry only acting now? Politics, Mr. Weasley sighed. Certain factions have been building a case against unrestricted magical partnerships. Your defeat of the basilisk made things worse, demonstrated too clearly how powerful your bond has become. They want to control what they fear, Dobby said wisely. Harry nodded grimly. Well, they'll find out tomorrow that we're not so easily controlled. The Ministry of Magic was imposing, a vast atrium with gilded fireplaces, a magnificent fountain, and hundreds of witches and wizards bustling about. Harry and Dobby attracted immediate attention as they followed Mr. Weasley toward the security desk, their golden bond clearly visible in the magical surroundings. Wand, please, the security wizard said to Harry, barely glancing up. Then he did a double take, eyes widening at the sight of Dobby. Is that house elf with you?" "My name is Dobby," the elf said with quiet dignity. "And yes, we are together." The wizard blinked rapidly. "Right, well, you don't have a wand, so." He waved them through awkwardly. They took the elevator to level 4, Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. The corridor was lined with moving posters of various magical beings, all classified and categorized with ministry-approved labels. Harry noticed Dobby eyeing them with distaste. "Ah, there's Dumbledore, Mr. Weasley said with relief, spotting the headmaster's tall figure waiting outside a conference room. "Harry, Dobby," Dumbledore greeted them with a reassuring smile. "I trust you're prepared for this meeting." "What exactly should we expect?" Harry asked. "Questions. Many questions." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Perhaps a demonstration or two. The committee will want to classify your bond according to existing regulatory frameworks, which will prove rather difficult, as nothing quite like your partnership exists in current magical law." "That's their problem, not ours," Dobby said with newfound assertiveness. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly at the elf's tone. "Indeed. Shall we?" The conference room contained a long table where 5 ministry officials sat waiting. Harry recognized Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, looking uncomfortable in the center seat. Beside him sat a toad-like woman in pink, whose smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ah, Mr. Potter, right on time," Fudge said jovially, though his gaze kept flicking nervously to Dobby. "And, your companion." "Dobby," the elf supplied. Yes, of course," Fudge mumbled. "Well, let's get started, shall we? This is a routine classification hearing, nothing to worry about. Just a formality, really." "A necessary formality," the Toad Woman simpered. "I'm Dolores Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to the Minister. We simply can't have unclassified magical bonds floating about, can we? Everything needs its proper place." Harry instantly disliked her. "Our bond already has its proper place," he said coolly. "With us." Umbridge's smile tightened. "Perhaps I wasn't clear, Mr. Potter. All magical creatures and magical relationships fall under ministry jurisdiction. Your association with this house elf must be properly documented and regulated." "Dobby is not a creature," Harry said, feeling his temper rise. "He's a magical being with rights and dignity." "Rights?" Umbridge gave a high, girlish laugh. "House elves don't have rights, Mr. Potter. They have responsibilities to their masters. Which brings us to our first concern, this elf's legal status. I am bonded to Harry Potter through the Covenant of Mutual Aid," Dobby stated firmly. "An ancient magic that predates your ministry classifications." A wizard with a monocle leaned forward. "That's precisely the issue at hand. The Covenant hasn't been recognized in legal statute for over 6 centuries. We have no framework for it." "Then perhaps it's time to create one," Dumbledore suggested mildly. The hearing dragged on for hours. The committee asked endless questions about their bond's formation, its abilities, and its limitations. Harry answered truthfully but vaguely, instinctively reluctant to reveal the full extent of their capabilities. "We would like a demonstration," Umbridge finally announced. "To properly classify the magical nature of your connection." Harry glanced at Dumbledore, who gave a slight nod. "What kind of demonstration?" "Something simple," the monocled wizard suggested. "Perhaps a cooperative spell." Harry and Dobby looked at each other, silently communicating through their bond. They had practiced many such demonstrations with Flitwick. With a nod, they stood facing a feather the committee had placed on the table. Together, they extended their hands. The golden thread between them brightened as they focused their combined magic. The feather rose smoothly, then transformed into a small bird that flew around the room before returning to the table and becoming a feather again. "Wandless transfiguration," the monocled wizard murmured, clearly impressed. And from both of them simultaneously. Highly unusual, another committee member agreed. Highly concerning, I would say, Umbridge countered. Such power in the hands of an underage wizard and a house elf. Without proper oversight. Dobby and I have been training with Professor Flitwick to control our abilities, Harry pointed out. We're responsible with our magic. The issue, Mr. Potter, Umbridge said with exaggerated patience, is that your bond exists outside established magical hierarchies. House elves serve wizards. They do not form equal partnerships with them. Yet here we are, Dobby said simply. Umbridge's eyes narrowed at the elf's interruption. Indeed. Which is why the committee recommends mandatory registration, regular ministry evaluation, and certain reasonable restrictions on combined magical practice. Restrictions? Harry repeated. What kind of restrictions? Nothing onerous, Fudge assured him hastily. Simply guidelines to ensure proper use of magic. For instance, the house elf would be prohibited from operating with you inside certain ministry and public buildings. And the use of your combined magic would be limited to supervised environments such as Hogwarts, Umbridge added sweetly. For safety reasons, of course. You want to control us, Harry translated bluntly. We want to ensure public safety, Umbridge corrected, her smile vanishing. Your bond represents an unprecedented concentration of magical power in very young hands. The ministry has a responsibility to regulate such power. I believe, Dumbledore interjected smoothly, that what Mr. Potter and Dobby are trying to express is their concern that such regulations might impede the natural development of their magical partnership. After all, their bond was instrumental in saving Hogwarts from a basilisk just last term. The committee shifted uncomfortably at this reminder. No one is questioning their heroism, Fudge said quickly. But rules must apply to everyone, Potter. Surely you understand that. Harry felt Dobby's steadying presence through their bond, calming his rising anger. We understand that our bond makes certain people uncomfortable, he said carefully. But we won't accept restrictions based on fear rather than reason. The committee will take your views into consideration, Umbridge said coldly. But the final determination rests with the ministry. We'll notify you of our decision by owl. As they left the hearing, Harry felt drained. That went about as well as expected, he muttered to Dumbledore. Actually, it went rather better than I feared, the headmaster replied. You both presented yourselves admirably. And the committee saw firsthand the respectful nature of your partnership, that will count in your favor. They're still going to try to control us, Harry said. Undoubtedly, Dumbledore agreed. But control is difficult to maintain over something one doesn't fully understand. And no one, not even I, fully understands what your bond is becoming. Harry glanced at Dobby, who walked beside them with new confidence. Neither do we, really. It keeps evolving. That, Dumbledore said with a mysterious smile, is precisely what worries them. Back at the Burrow, Harry and Dobby filled everyone in on the hearing while Mrs. Weasley prepared dinner. Bureaucratic nonsense, Fred declared. Complete rubbish, George agreed. They're just mad they can't do what you can. It's more complicated than that, Hermione argued. The ministry's entire legal framework is built around magical categories. Wizard magic, creature magic, goblin magic, all separately regulated. Your bond blurs those lines. Which means they don't know where to file the paperwork, Ron snorted. Exactly. Hermione said, missing his sarcasm. But it's not just administrative, it's political. If house elves can form magical partnerships as equals with wizards, then the whole system of wizard supremacy gets called into question, Dobby finished. Precisely, Hermione beamed at him. Their discussion was interrupted by a strange scratching at the kitchen window. It wasn't an owl, but a small, terrified-looking house elf clinging to the sill. Nippy! Dobby exclaimed, rushing to let her in. The female house elf tumbled into the kitchen, trembling violently. She wore a filthy tea towel stamped with the Malfoy crest. "Dobby," she squeaked. "Nippy had to warn you. Master is planning something terrible." Mrs. Weasley immediately supplied the distraught elf with tea and biscuits while she caught her breath. Slowly, her story emerged. "Master Malfoy has been meeting with dark wizards," she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder as if expecting punishment. "They plan a ritual to break Harry Potter's bond with Dobby. A dark, ancient ritual." "When?" Harry demanded. "Full moon before school returns," Nippy answered. "They need special components. Rare ingredients. Master sent other wizards to collect them." "What kind of ritual?" Hermione asked, already reaching for parchment to take notes. "Old elf magic," Nippy said. "From before wizards. Nippy heard Master say it will sever even the strongest magical bonds." Dobby had gone very still. "Blood magic," he said quietly. "They're planning to use corrupted house elf binding magic against us." "Can they do that?" Harry asked, feeling a cold dread settle in his stomach. "Maybe," Dobby admitted. "The oldest elf magics were powerful but malleable. Wizards corrupted them long ago to create the binding spells that enslaved us." "We need to tell Dumbledore," Mr. Weasley said firmly. "And we need to prepare," Dobby added. "This ritual, if it's what I think, requires physical components from both bonded parties." "Like what?" Ron asked uneasily. "Hair, blood, personal possessions," Dobby listed. "Anything connected to our magical signatures." Harry frowned. "That would mean breaking into Hogwarts or the Burrow to get my things. Or using something they already have," Dobby said ominously. "Master Lucius kept trophies from those the Malfoys considered significant. He may have something of yours, Harry Potter." "Is that why you came to warn us, Nippy?" Harry asked the trembling elf. "Even though the Malfoys are your masters?" Nippy twisted her hands anxiously. Nippy saw what Dobby became. How he changed. Nippy wondered. Could other elves change too? "They can," Dobby said, kneeling beside her. "All house elves have the potential to reconnect with our original magic. The bonds of servitude have just made us forget." Nippy's huge eyes widened further. "Nippy would be punished terribly for coming here. Nippy cannot return to the manor." "You don't have to," Harry said immediately. "You can stay here with us. Actually, Mr. Weasley interjected thoughtfully, Nippy could be incredibly valuable as a source of information. If she was willing, she could return to Malfoy Manor and report on their preparations for this ritual." "That would be dangerous," Mrs. Weasley protested. "Very," Dobby agreed. "But also potentially necessary. We need to know exactly what they're planning." All eyes turned to Nippy, who sat wringing her tea towel. "Nippy is scared," she admitted. "But Nippy wants to help Dobby and Harry Potter. Nippy wants freedom." "Then that's what you'll have," Harry promised. "After this is over, we'll make sure you're free from the Malfoys forever." "In the meantime," Mr. Weasley said, "we should contact Dumbledore immediately. And I think we should consider relocating to a safer location. If Malfoy suspects Nippy's betrayal, the Burrow could be compromised." "Where would we go?" Ron asked. "I might have a suggestion," Mr. Weasley said, looking suddenly thoughtful. "An old family property with extensive magical protections. Belongs to Sirius Black. The escaped murderer." Harry exclaimed. "Ah," Mr. Weasley looked uncomfortable. "There have been some developments regarding Sirius Black. Developments Dumbledore has been meaning to discuss with you, Harry." Harry stared at him in confusion. "What developments?" "I think," Mrs. Weasley interrupted, "that's a conversation best had with Dumbledore present. For now, let's focus on keeping everyone safe." 3 days later, Harry found himself standing before a row of grim-looking townhouses in London, reading a piece of parchment in Dumbledore's handwriting. The headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix may be found at number 12, Grimmauld Place, London. As he read, a battered door emerged between numbers 11 and 13, followed by dirty walls and grimy windows. The entire house seemed to inflate, pushing its neighbors aside. "Wicked," Ron breathed beside him. "Quickly now, Mrs. Weasley ushered them toward the door. Before any muggles notice. The interior of number 12 Grimmauld Place was as gloomy as its exterior, dark, dusty, and decorated with disturbing artifacts that spoke of generations of dark magic practitioners. A mounted row of house elf heads on the wall made Dobby stop short, his expression unreadable. "Not the most welcoming headquarters," Mr. Weasley admitted. "But it's under the Fidelius charm, which makes it one of the most secure locations in Britain." "Headquarters for what, exactly?" Harry asked. "The Order of the Phoenix," said a familiar voice. Sirius Black stepped out of a doorway, looking much healthier than the wanted posters but still gaunt. "Dumbledore's resistance movement, from the First War against Voldemort." Harry instinctively stepped in front of Dobby, raising his wand. "You're supposed to be trying to kill me," he said warily. Sirius raised his hands in a placating gesture. "That's what the Ministry wants everyone to believe. The truth is considerably more complicated, and involves your parents' real betrayer, Peter Pettigrew." Over the next hour in the kitchen, Sirius, with occasional input from Remus Lupin, who Harry was surprised to find there, explained the true story of the Potter's betrayal, Pettigrew's fake death, and Sirius's wrongful imprisonment. "So Pettigrew was living as Ron's rat for 12 years? Harry asked incredulously. "Until he heard about my escape and fled," Sirius confirmed. "Dumbledore's been trying to convince Fudge to reopen my case, but the Ministry's reluctant to admit such a colossal mistake. That's why they're so eager to blame the recent Azkaban breakout on me," Sirius added. "Easier than admitting the Dementors might be joining Voldemort." "Azkaban breakout?" Harry hadn't heard about this. "Happened yesterday," Lupin explained. "Several high-security prisoners escaped, all former Death Eaters. The Ministry's keeping it quiet, but we believe they've rejoined Voldemort." Harry's head was spinning with these revelations. So Voldemort really is back. Gaining power? Gathering followers, certainly, Sirius nodded grimly. "That's why Dumbledore reactivated the Order. And why your bond with Dobby is more significant than ever." Harry felt Dobby shift beside him. "Our bond? What does that have to do with Voldemort?" "New forms of magic, particularly cooperative magic, could be crucial in the coming conflict," Lupin explained. "Your partnership represents a type of power Voldemort wouldn't anticipate or understand." "Which brings us to the matter of Lucius Malfoy's ritual," Sirius said, his expression darkening. "Dumbledore believes it's not just about reclaiming a house elf. It's about eliminating a potential threat to Voldemort's return." "Nippy provided details this morning," Mr. Weasley added. "The ritual is scheduled for the next full moon, August 25th. They've already gathered most of the required components." "Including something of mine?" Harry asked anxiously. "A quill you used to write lines in detention with Snape last year," Lupin confirmed. "Draco Malfoy procured it. The ritual requires 5 dark wizards, specific astronomical alignments, and a corrupted version of ancient elf magic," Dobby explained, having discussed the details extensively with Nippy. "Its purpose is to violently sever magical bonds and re-establish the original master-servant connection." "Can it work?" Hermione asked. She'd been taking detailed notes throughout the conversation. "Possibly," Dobby admitted. "Our bond is strong, but this magic predates the modern understanding of magical connections." "So what do we do?" Harry asked. "Wait for them to attack us?" "Absolutely not," Sirius said firmly. "We prepare. We train. And we consider a more proactive approach." "You mean we go after them first," Harry translated. "With appropriate backup," Lupin qualified quickly, shooting Sirius a warning look. The order would coordinate. No, Mrs. Weasley interrupted. They're children, Sirius. I agreed to bring them here for safety, not to involve them in order missions. They're already involved, Molly, Sirius argued. Malfoy has targeted them specifically. And their bond may be our best weapon against this ritual. I think, Dumbledore's calm voice came from the doorway, that we should ask Harry and Dobby what they think. All heads turned as the headmaster entered the kitchen, his bright robes incongruous in the gloomy surroundings. Professor, Harry acknowledged. We want to fight. This isn't just about us, it's about what our bond represents. Freedom. Equality. Everything Voldemort stands against. A noble sentiment, Dumbledore nodded. But also a dangerous one. The ritual Lucius is planning carries significant risks, to both sides. What do you mean? Harry asked. Ancient magic is rarely precise, Dumbledore explained. It tends toward explosive outcomes when disrupted. If the ritual fails or is interrupted improperly, the magical backlash could be devastating. Then we need to stop it before it begins, Dobby said decisively. An excellent suggestion, Dumbledore agreed. But that presents its own challenges. Malfoy Manor is heavily warded, and Lucius will be expecting some form of intervention. Not from me, Nippy piped up unexpectedly from where she sat beside Dobby. Master, Mr. Malfoy, still thinks Nippy is loyal. That could be our advantage, Sirius said eagerly. An inside source to disrupt their preparations. It would be incredibly dangerous for Nippy, Hermione pointed out. All of this is dangerous, Harry said. But if we do nothing, Malfoy will only grow bolder. And other house elves will never have the chance to become what Dobby has. The discussion continued late into the evening, with plans proposed, refined, and sometimes discarded. Throughout it all, Harry was acutely aware of Dobby's presence beside him, not just physically but through their bond, which seemed to pulse with greater intensity in this house filled with the remnants of dark magic. Later, as they prepared for bed in the room they'd been assigned, Harry noticed Dobby staring contemplatively at their still unfinished Rowan branch focus. What are you thinking? Harry asked. That we need to complete this, Dobby replied, picking up the branch. Before the full moon. It could be crucial. We've hit a wall with it, though, Harry pointed out. It absorbs our magic but doesn't channel it back effectively. Because it's missing something, Dobby said thoughtfully. Something personal. Something that represents both of us. Harry considered this. Like a magical core. Wands have phoenix feathers or dragon heartstrings. Similar, but different, Dobby nodded. Our focus needs something uniquely ours. Something born from our bond. They fell silent, both contemplating the problem. Then Harry had an inspiration. What about the basilisk fang? The one that pierced my arm and that you used to destroy Riddle's diary. It was part of both our victories. Dobby's eyes widened. That could work. It was exposed to your blood, to Phoenix tears, and to my magic when I used it against the diary. It's tied to our shared history. One problem, Harry grimaced. It's probably still in the Chamber of Secrets. Not necessarily, Dobby said with a slow smile. I may have collected it afterward. As a reminder of what we accomplished together. From a small pouch he wore around his neck, Dobby produced a shard of yellowed fang, still bearing faint dark stains. You've been carrying that around all this time? Harry asked, amazed. It felt important, Dobby said simply. Now I understand why. That night, they worked on incorporating the basilisk fang fragment into their Rowan focus. Guided by instinct more than knowledge, they carefully split the branch along its length, inserted the fang shard, and then used their combined magic to seal the wood around it. The result was a staff-like object about 2 feet long, with the fang visible as a darker core running through its center. As they completed the final binding, the focus flared with golden light, matching the hue of their bond. When the glow subsided, the rowanwood had transformed, smoother, more defined, with intricate patterns etched into its surface that seemed to shift and flow like water. "It's beautiful," Harry whispered, reaching out to touch it. The moment his fingers made contact, he felt a surge of their combined magic, more controlled and directed than ever before. "Not just beautiful," Dobby said, placing his hand beside Harry's on the focus. "Powerful." Together, they directed a simple levitation spell through the focus. The result was anything but simple. Every object in the room began to float, suspended in perfect formation as if gravity had been selectively cancelled. "Whoa," Harry breathed, carefully releasing the spell. The objects settled gently back into place. "This changes everything." "Just in time," Dobby agreed. "The full moon is in 3 days." Grimmauld Place transformed into a headquarters of frantic preparation. Order members came and went at all hours, bringing information about Death Eater movements and Malfoy's activities. Nippy made careful trips back to the manor, gathering crucial details about the ritual preparations. "They've constructed a stone circle in the woods behind the manor," she reported after her latest reconnaissance. 5 pillars with runes. "Master Malfoy tested the boundaries with magic yesterday." "And the participants?" Lupin asked. "Master Malfoy, Mr. Crabbe, Mr. Goyle, Mr. Knott, and Mr. McNair," Nippy listed. "They practiced the ritual chanting last night." Harry and Dobby spent every available moment training with their new focus, developing techniques to counter the binding magic Malfoy planned to use. Sirius, whose family library contained several volumes on ancient magical bonds, provided invaluable guidance. "The key to resisting this ritual," he explained, "is understanding that it targets the connection between you. Like pulling apart 2 magnets by inserting something between them. So we need to make sure nothing can come between us," Harry reasoned. "Precisely," Sirius nodded. "Your focus should help with that. It's a physical representation of your magical unity." On the evening before the full moon, the Order gathered for a final strategy session. The plan they developed was risky but straightforward. Nippy would return to Malfoy Manor one last time to sabotage key elements of the ritual circle. Meanwhile, a team including Harry, Dobby, Sirius, Lupin, and several other Order members would position themselves around the manor's perimeter, ready to intervene if necessary. "Remember," Dumbledore cautioned, "our primary goal is to prevent the ritual from beginning. Direct confrontation is a last resort." "And if Nippy's sabotage fails?" Harry asked the question everyone was thinking. "Then we move to Plan B," Dumbledore said gravely. "A direct counter-ritual, performed by you and Dobby through your focus. But that carries its own dangers." "What kind of dangers?" Mrs. Weasley asked worriedly. "Magical backlash," Lupin explained. "When opposing magical forces collide, the results can be unpredictable. Especially with ancient magic," Sirius added. "It doesn't play by modern rules." Harry looked at Dobby, communicating silently through their bond. Both felt the same mixture of determination and apprehension. After a moment, Harry nodded. "We understand the risks," he told the room. "But we have to try." "Very well," Dumbledore said solemnly. "We proceed as planned. Everyone should get some rest. Tomorrow will test us all." As the meeting broke up, Hermione pulled Harry aside. "I've been researching," she said, which was practically her catchphrase. "About your bond and what it might mean for house elves generally." "And?" Harry prompted when she hesitated. "And I think what's happening with Dobby isn't just about your specific connection," she continued excitedly. "I think he's reverting to what house elves were before wizard enslavement, returning to their original magical nature." "Dobby's mentioned something similar," Harry nodded. "He says he's becoming what house elves were meant to be." "Exactly." Hermione's eyes shone with academic enthusiasm. "The magical theorists I've studied suggest that house elves were once guardians of magical places and magical children. They formed partnerships with wizards, not servitude relationships. So Malfoy isn't just trying to reclaim Dobby, Harry realized. He's trying to prevent other house elves from following his example. It could spark a revolution in how magical beings relate to each other, Hermione agreed. Which makes tomorrow about much more than just you and Dobby. Harry felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. No pressure, then, he said with a weak smile. The full moon rose over Malfoy Manor, bathing the elaborate gardens and dark woods in silvery light. Hidden among the trees at the property's edge, Harry and Dobby crouched beside Sirius and Lupin, watching for the signal. Nippy should have disabled the perimeter wards by now, Lupin whispered, checking his watch. And sabotaged the ritual components, Sirius added. If all goes well, Malfoy won't even be able to begin the ceremony. Harry gripped their focus tightly, feeling its reassuring warmth. Beside him, Dobby was unnaturally still, his large eyes reflecting the moonlight with an almost phosphorescent glow. The changes in the house elf had accelerated over the past days. He now stood nearly 4.5 feet tall, his features more defined, his magical aura visibly shimmering around him. Through their bond, Harry sensed Dobby's heightened awareness, scanning the magical landscape around them. Suddenly, Dobby stiffened. Something's wrong, he whispered. I can feel dark magic activating in the ritual circle. Lupin frowned, peering through omnioculars toward the clearing. I don't see any movement yet. Wait, there's Malfoy and the others. They're entering the circle. But where's Nippy? Harry asked anxiously. She was supposed to signal us. His question was answered by a high, terrified scream that cut through the night. From their position, they could see a small figure being dragged into the ritual circle by McNair. They caught her, Sirius growled. Plan A is officially dead. We move to the contingency, Lupin decided, sending red sparks into the air, the signal for the other Order members positioned around the property. What are they going to do to Nippy? Harry asked, already moving forward. Use her as a substitute component, Dobby replied grimly. House elf blood can power certain dark rituals, especially those involving elf magic. They advanced quickly through the woods, the sounds of chanting growing louder as they approached the clearing. From their new vantage point, they could see the ritual circle clearly, 5 stone pillars arranged in a star pattern, each topped with a burning green flame. Lucius Malfoy stood at the center, resplendent in ceremonial robes, reading from an ancient text. The other Death Eaters occupied positions at each pillar, while Nippy struggled against magical bonds in the center. We need to disrupt the circle, Lupin whispered. Sirius, take the north pillar. I'll take east. The others will handle west and south. Harry, Dobby, be ready with your counterspell if the ritual activates. Nods all around, and then they were moving. Harry and Dobby held back slightly, watching as the Order members crept toward their designated positions. The plan was simple, simultaneously disable the pillars, disrupting the magical geometry of the ritual. But just as they were about to strike, a cold voice cut through the night. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Black. The woods around them suddenly blazed with light as hidden Death Eaters revealed themselves, at least a dozen, wands raised and pointed at the Order members. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate Dumbledore's interference? Lucius drawled. Or that I wouldn't notice my own house elf's betrayal? With a casual flick of his wand, he sent Nippy crashing to the ground. She lay motionless, but Harry could see she was still breathing. We've been preparing this ritual for months, Malfoy continued, gesturing for his compatriots to secure the Order members. Every detail planned, every contingency considered. Including the possibility that you might try to stop us. Harry and Dobby remained hidden, watching in horror as Sirius, Lupin, and the others were disarmed and forced into the clearing at one point. What now? Harry whispered desperately. Dobby's expression was resolute. We proceed with Plan B. But we'll need to modify it, use it to free the others first. How? Harry asked. We practice disrupting the ritual, not fighting a dozen Death Eaters. Trust our bond, Dobby said simply. It's stronger than their magic, we just need to believe that. Through their connection, Harry felt Dobby's absolute conviction, his unwavering faith in their partnership. It steadied him, replacing panic with determination. On three, Harry nodded. 1, 2, 3. They burst from the trees, their focus held between them, the golden thread of their bond blazing with power. Before the startled Death Eaters could react, Harry and Dobby channeled their combined magic through the focus, directing it toward the ritual circle. Libertas Vinculum, they shouted in unison, the incantation they developed to counter the binding ritual. Golden light exploded from the focus, washing over the clearing like a tidal wave. Where it touched the Order members, their bonds dissolved. Where it touched the Death Eaters, it knocked them backward as if hit by a physical force. Only Lucius remained standing, protected by the ritual circle's power. His face contorted with rage and disbelief. "You're too late, Potter," he snarled. "The ritual has already begun." Indeed, the 5 pillars were now connected by lines of dark energy, forming a pentagram that pulsed with malevolent power. At its center, something was taking shape, a swirling vortex of magic that seemed to reach toward Harry and Dobby's bond like grasping fingers. "Harry Potter. The focus." Dobby called, his voice somehow deeper and more resonant than before. "Channel everything through it." Together, they planted the rowan staff in the ground at the edge of the clearing. The effect was immediate and dramatic, their bond flared even brighter, and the focus began to draw power from the earth itself, roots of golden energy spreading outward. Lucius saw what they were doing and panicked. "Stop them," he commanded the recovering Death Eaters. "Kill them if necessary. The elf can be replaced." Spells flew toward Harry and Dobby, only to be absorbed by the expanding field of golden energy surrounding them. Each attack seemed to strengthen their connection rather than weaken it. "You don't understand, Lucius." Dobby called out, his voice carrying unnaturally across the clearing. "You never understood what house elves truly are. What we were before wizards bound us." As he spoke, Dobby began to change before everyone's eyes. He grew taller still, nearly 5 feet now, his features becoming more refined, almost elegant. The golden-green glow of his skin intensified, and an aura of ancient magic surrounded him like a cloak. "Impossible," Lucius breathed, momentarily forgetting the ritual as he stared at his former servant's transformation. "Not impossible," Dobby replied. "Inevitable. What you see is what house elves were meant to be, guardians of magic, partners to wizards, not slaves." The dark vortex at the center of the ritual circle was growing unstable, the opposing magical forces creating dangerous turbulence. Sirius and Lupin, having recovered their wands, were now engaged in duels with the Death Eaters, while other Order members worked to free Nippy and disrupt the pillars. "The ritual is destabilizing," Lupin shouted over the growing magical storm. "Everyone needs to get clear." But Harry and Dobby stood their ground, channeling more power through their focus. Through their bond, they communicated without words, understanding instinctively what needed to be done. This wasn't just about stopping Malfoy's ritual, it was about transforming it, using its own power to fuel something new. "Lucius!" Harry called out. "Stop the ritual now, while you still can. It's going to backfire." But Malfoy was beyond reason, his face twisted with desperation as he poured more of his own magic into the faltering ritual. "I will not be defeated by a child and a house elf," he snarled. The conflicting magical energies reached critical mass. With a sound like thunder, the vortex collapsed in on itself, then exploded outward. A shockwave of raw magic swept across the clearing, flattening everyone except Harry, Dobby, and, remarkably, Nippy, who had somehow ended up within their protective field. When the magical dust settled, the scene was chaos. The ritual pillars had been reduced to rubble. Death Eaters lay unconscious or groaning across the clearing. The Order members were picking themselves up, looking dazed but largely unharmed. In the center of it all stood Lucius Malfoy, but changed. His proud posture was gone, replaced by a stooped, servile bearing. His eyes, once cold and imperious, now held the huge, tennis ball dimensions characteristic of house elves. His hands had elongated, his ears grown pointed. What have you done to me?" he whispered, his voice several octaves higher than normal. "We didn't do this," Harry said, equally shocked. "Your ritual did. It backfired." "The magic sought balance," Dobby explained, approaching his former master without fear. "You tried to use corrupted house elf magic to enslave me again. But our bond transformed the ritual, and it found a different target." "This can't be happening," Lucius moaned, examining his changed hands in horror. "Reverse it. Immediately." "I don't think we can," Harry said. "Ancient magic has its own rules." "Is it permanent?" Lupin asked, coming to stand beside them. "Unlikely," Dobby said after a moment's consideration. "Without the proper binding spells to stabilize it, the transformation will probably fade. Eventually." "Eventually?" Lucius squeaked. "Perhaps a few months," Dobby estimated. "Long enough to experience life from the other side, Master Malfoy." Sirius couldn't contain a bark of laughter. "Poetic justice if I ever saw it." "We should secure the Death Eaters before any of them regain consciousness," Lupin reminded them, ever practical. "The Ministry will have detected this level of magical activity." As the Order members rounded up the stunned Death Eaters, Harry turned to Dobby and Nippy. "Are you both okay?" Nippy nodded, her eyes fixed on Dobby with wonder. "Dobby has become an elder," she whispered reverently. "A what?" Harry asked. "An elder," Dobby repeated, looking somewhat surprised himself. "It's what house elves were called before the binding, guardians of magical places and magical children." Harry studied his friend closely. Dobby had indeed transformed dramatically. Standing nearly as tall as Harry now, he retained his distinctive features but with a nobility and grace that commanded respect rather than pity. His tennis ball eyes had become almond-shaped and brilliantly green, his bat-like ears elegant and proportional. Even his voice had changed, deeper, more resonant, with an accent Harry couldn't quite place. "You look different," Harry managed. "I feel different," Dobby agreed. "More connected to ancient magic. To what house elves were meant to be." He gestured to their focus, which still pulsed with golden light where it stood embedded in the ground. "Our bond has accelerated the transformation, but I believe all house elves have this potential within them." "A revolutionary thought," said Dumbledore, who had appeared silently at the edge of the clearing. His eyes took in the scene, the transformed Malfoy, the unconscious Death Eaters, and most of all, Dobby's dramatic evolution. "Professor," Harry acknowledged. "You missed all the excitement." "So it seems," Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Though I suspect the excitement is only beginning." The aftermath of what the Daily Prophet would later dub the Malfoy Manor incident sent shockwaves through the wizarding world. With multiple Death Eaters captured at the scene, the Ministry could no longer deny Voldemort's gathering forces. Fudge found himself under intense political pressure, especially after Lucius Malfoy, still partially transformed into a house elf-like creature, was discovered to bear the dark mark. For Harry and Dobby, the consequences were more personal and profound. Their bond, now impossible to ignore or dismiss, became the subject of intense interest from magical researchers, political factions, and, most significantly, the house elf population. "They've been coming to see him all week," Hermione reported, returning from another visit to the Hogwarts kitchens. "House elves from all over Britain, sneaking away from their families just to meet Dobby." "Are they all wanting freedom?" Ron asked skeptically. "Not exactly," Hermione said thoughtfully. "It's more complicated than that. They want dignity. Recognition of what they once were." Dobby, who had been quietly listening, nodded. "Freedom is meaningless without purpose," he said. "What house elves seek isn't just release from servitude, but restoration of our original magic and relationships." They were gathered in the Gryffindor common room, enjoying the first weekend of their third year at Hogwarts. The school year had begun with unprecedented changes. Dobby now attended classes alongside Harry as a student rather than a familiar, following Dumbledore's official recognition of his unique magical status. The reaction from students had been mixed. Some, particularly those from traditional wizarding families, were openly hostile to the idea of a house elf, no matter how transformed, attending classes as an equal. Others were merely curious. A surprising number, especially among Muggle-borns, accepted the situation with remarkable ease. The funny thing is, Harry observed, nobody seems bothered by our bond anymore. It's Dobby attending classes that drives them crazy. Because the bond could be dismissed as a magical curiosity, Hermione explained. But Dobby sitting in Transfiguration challenges the entire social order. Speaking of challenging the social order, Ron interjected, have you heard from Nippy? Harry grinned. She's settling in well at Grimmauld Place. Sirius officially offered her asylum and employment, with salary and days off, of course. And the other Malfoy elves? Hermione asked eagerly. 3 have left so far, Dobby reported. Not through clothes, but by invoking the ancient dissolution ritual I taught them. It only works if the house elf truly reconnects with their original magic, so not all can use it yet. What about Lucius? Ron asked with poorly concealed glee. Still sprouting ears. The transformation is gradually reversing, Dobby confirmed. Though I hear from Order sources that he still can't control his magic properly, keeps operating unexpectedly and making objects float when he's upset. They all laughed at the image, though Harry quickly grew serious again. And Voldemort? Any news? The mood darkened instantly. Though Voldemort himself remained in hiding, the signs of his growing influence were becoming harder to ignore. Dementor sightings had increased. Former Death Eaters were quietly disappearing from public life. Dumbledore had warned Harry that the confrontation at Malfoy Manor had likely accelerated Voldemort's timeline. Nothing concrete, Hermione admitted. Though Professor Lupin mentioned that the Order has been meeting more frequently. Their conversation was interrupted by a tiny first year who approached their group tentatively. Excuse me, she squeaked, looking nervously at Dobby. Are you really? I mean, were you really a house elf? I am an elder now, Dobby replied gently, but yes, I was bound as a house elf for many years. My family has house elves, the girl confided. But after seeing you in class, I started wondering, are we wrong to keep them? Are they all like you inside? Harry watched as Dobby considered his response carefully. This was happening more and more, students approaching with genuine questions, their worldviews challenged by Dobby's very existence. All house elves have potential for growth, Dobby answered finally. But change must come gradually, with understanding on both sides. Perhaps you could start by speaking to your family's elves as individuals, learning their names and stories. The girl nodded solemnly. I will. Thank you. She hurried back to her friends, already deep in thought. You're changing minds, Harry said quietly after she'd gone. One conversation at a time. We are changing minds, Dobby corrected. Our bond showed what's possible when magic is shared rather than controlled. Harry smiled, feeling the golden thread of their connection pulse with shared purpose. So what's next for us? Dobby's expression turned serious. War is coming, Harry Potter. Voldemort fears what we represent, cooperation between magical kinds, power shared rather than hoarded. We need to be ready. We will be, Harry promised. Together. The lake's surface glittered with autumn sunlight as Harry and Dobby walked its perimeter. Their focus, now named Unity, in a moment of Hermione-inspired formality, hung at Harry's side, a constant reminder of their shared journey. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't come to warn me that night? Harry asked. Sometimes, Dobby admitted. But fate has strange patterns. I believe our paths were meant to cross, one way or another. Harry considered this. 2 years ago, he would have dismissed such mystical thinking. But after everything they'd experienced, the spontaneous bond, Dobby's transformation, the ancient magics they'd encountered, he was less certain. Perhaps some connections were indeed destined. "Whatever comes next," Harry said, "I'm glad you'll be there." "As am I, Harry Potter," Dobby replied, the golden thread between them brightening with shared resolve. "As am I." They continued their walk, two figures silhouetted against the setting sun, neither fully wizard nor house elf, but something new. Something revolutionary. Something powerful. And in the shadows of the coming war, that power might make all the difference. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.